How's it going, everybody? This is Martin Stokes here.
And this is Dean Scurry.
And I am a traveller.
And I am a countryman.
Welcome to A Traveller
and a Countryman podcast.
Because I'm from the travelling community, I'm very much my own individual, and I've always spoke about those two things. And I think that's what you try to do with your podcast, isn't it? That's why it's a traveller and a countryman, and it's like, how does you two have views on things, and where does that come from, and how does those things come together? And I think I'm like, obviously I'm fully a traveller, but I've lived in environments that have been complete opposite of that, or experiences in my life where that's been difficult. So I think I can understand both. I'd come home like to a traveller's site, and then I went to school with, especially when I got older into like later years, like leaving cert years, and there was no more travellers into school that was my age because they'd all left already. So I'd be in school with non-travellers that were my age group, and then obviously my family were travellers. So it's like I seen two different sides to life. Yeah, so I think that's probably why it's good as a guest on a podcast like this, because both of you have different experiences but might have similar. That's part of the thing, isn't it, in society, is because that, as you said, labels. So everyone is going to be a particular way based on how like they grew up, but at the same time you are an individual. You'll have the thing even as somebody from Ballymunna, you said like your parents is from town, and there'll be stereotypes that can be true, negative and positive about both of them things. And I always say this, like how people can relate to one another if they think of that. Like women get judged as women more than men do in certain setups. So maybe women can understand how, maybe in a way, like what it's like to be black and somebody be racist to you, what it's like to be a traveller, what it's like to be gay, what it's like to be Muslim, Catholic, different religions. Everyone gets discriminated against, so we can all understand each other. I think a struggle is a struggle, in my opinion.
So episode 21, I am excited to have a lovely guest on this evening, Hughie Maughan.
Hello.
Hello, Hughie.
Welcome, Hughie.
So we were recording for about 10 minutes, but I didn't have the microphone set up properly, so we're starting again. So I'm going to get a bit of energy in the room. Ladies and gentlemen, all the way from St. Margaret's St. Margaret's Park Traveller Camp in Ballymun, the one and only, the beautiful, the sexy Hughie Maughan.
Yes.
Pretend crowd. You can edit a crowd noise in there. Edit one in.
So I was driving over here and I was excited that you were coming on as a guest because it's episode 21 and I think it's about time because you, for me, you represent what's beautiful about this country. That it's not just you're a traveller. It's not just you're a celebrity on TV shows. For me, you are the New Ireland.
Well, yeah, I suppose it's a different version of a traveller you could have on the podcast, is it maybe? Like I'm very much my own individual and my own person, and I'm still sort of young. I mean, I'm getting older.
Yeah,
I'm still sort of young.
What age are you?
28, so I'm clawing my way onto the youth still. I'm nearly there. So maybe I'm still part of the younger generation to a certain degree, so I can understand kind of things that happens and what's kind of going on. Not really a 16-year-old how things is for them, but I can kind of get it with a 20-somethings of the country. So yeah, I can understand why you have that introduction, but I mean, don't blow me head up too much. Dean.
No, I'm not at all. Like,
felt like Oprah Winfrey.
you're not Oprah Winfrey. She's a bleeding 60-odd-year-old, 70-year-old black woman in
I couldn't be any more
America.
opposite. She's a billionaire black American woman. I couldn't be more opposite of her.
Yes.
With that tan, you look black.
Jesus, Dean, that's not the comment you want to make. Oh, I don't know.
You went and blew it, Dean. You went and blew it.
Can you say that? Can I say that?
Yeah, what?
I think I should leave that in. I said it.
You can say what you want to say.
I can say what I want to say. I think that's the beauty of having this podcast is that we can say what we want to say without just getting hung up in it and have conversations.
Yeah. I think the world is very hung up on it. I can get a lot of things. We can go into this throughout it if you want. But I think the world's very hung up on that, isn't it? Like nowadays you don't know what you can and can't make a joke about. But then you put yourself into the shoes of them people and you think if somebody made jokes about who you are because of the problems you or your family or your ancestors might have faced, you can then get it.
That's right.
I don't know. There's a fine line between joking and being ignorant.
Or using other people's downfalls, as we call it, for jokes, like, you know.
Yeah, that's not funny, is it, at all?
That's not good either.
I suppose it's how close this is the problem is, right? So the people in the media, the people listening to them aren't their best friends or their families, so they don't know their heart. So they hear them saying something and they get offended. It's a bit like if a stranger or somebody you barely know joked with you about something personal, but if your best friend done it, you wouldn't get offended because you know it's your best friend.
You know, he means no harm.
Yeah. So I think I've unlocked why we have
The
cancel
relationship
culture
and
now.
also the intention.
Yeah, that's made me realise something I thought of that. So it must be to do with
Go
that.
on,
It's
say it again.
obviously-
What's the realization?
It's like I keep saying the world is too sensitive and whatever, but it must be probably because of your relationship with the person who you're offended by. So as I said, if your best friend said it, that wouldn't bother you, or a family member. Well, depending on family members.
Well, the chances are, if your best friend is slagging you, you know he probably means no harm.
That's exactly what it is.
But
yeah.
if someone who's saying with a prejudice or a
Yeah.
bad intention,
or somebody you don't
so
really
then it's
know,
effective, like, isn't
your
it?
cousin's brother-in-law or something, you might just know them like that, and you see, you don't know what they're like then, so you don't know how they meant it, and you might pretend they're joking. So it's similar to if you're listening to a podcast and a white person makes a joke about some other racial group.
Well, I just made one there, right, about your tan, and you
Yeah.
don't.
Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah, you look black with that tan, right? So the intention behind that is a bit of light-handed banter. I don't think Oprah's going to get offended. Other black people might get offended, but my intention is not to go out and fucking hurt people or harm
never.
people. I'm looking for a bit of crack. In
But the
Ireland, we-
listener doesn't know you. That's what we were just saying.
Yeah.
And also, people are just wanting
I
to be
still think
offended a lot.
if people has a good sense of humour, they know whether you're joking or whether you're serious, don't
Yeah,
they?
yeah. And nobody knows what my ancestral bloodline is. They're just assuming. I mean, I am white and a traveller, but for all they know, my grandfather's not. I don't know. Maybe I just turned out lighter skinned. Do you know what I mean? A lot of travellers have gypsy blood. Gypsies are ancestrally Indian.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
So a lot of travellers were married to gypsies and married to non-travellers. So you don't know what your full genetic bloodline is. And also, a lot of my family are very dark-skinned. Me and my dad talked about this the other day about the on his dad's side, we think that there would have been a lot of gypsy heritage because so many of my cousins and my aunties and like all of them are so dark skinned, dark hair, very curly hair, very coarse hair, dark eyes, like all their features and stuff. So we've often wondered that, like, 'cause you get a lot of travellers in certain names and surnames that are very dark skinned, don't you? And they look like gypsy people, but they're Irish travellers. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
So yeah, there's a little, I
what
don't know
I-
if that explains.
What I'm trying to explore in this podcast probably is that we do have differences. We do have different bloodlines. We do have different backgrounds and cultures. But beyond all that, we're all the bleeding same, really.
Yeah, everyone is the same, but everyone's different, if that makes sense. We're all the same. We all deserve to be treated the same, whilst being from where we're from.
Yeah.
We all bleed red blood.
That's right.
Every race.
We all bleed red blood. We all cry. We all have fears, emotions, anxieties, hang-ups. We all laugh.
Yeah.
All of that fucking stuff, I think, that's what blows my mind about people. And that's probably why I'm doing the podcast as well.
Yeah.
Because I just like fucking meeting people and going, what makes this fucker tick?
I do. I'm always like that. I always ask everyone questions. Like, I was thinking today about when I done this show last year, and there was a woman on the show, and she's very, very mixed raced. So it's like all 4 grandparents are different races. And we were having a conversation, and one of the first things I ever said for her was, she was getting ready, we were going on a night out, and I said, oh, you look like Moana. You know, like the girl from the Disney movie was the big curly hair. And she was saying to me how that could be deemed offensive and whatever because of comparing and all of that. And I was like, but back home, like in Dublin and with travellers and in Ballymun, we grew up very community spirited around a lot of people and having conversations openly. I know it's not really like that now. So that's very normal to me to be like that. And I meant it in a good way. But she completely took it up the complete opposite way. And I thought she was very outwardly, like worldly. So obviously she wasn't. But I knew as well that she didn't take it up badly because she thought it was a bad person. She was just saying how it can be deemed.
Yeah, but anything can be taken by... If I said to you, Hughie, you look great this evening, you can take that 15 fucking ways.
Yeah, I can take it. You're being patronising or you're being nice.
Why are you focusing on my looks as opposed to my heritage or my family or,
you definitely, yeah. So people can...
So it reduces the conversation to fuck all.
And people find it weird.
I would just say thanks.
But do you not think though,
Little
Martin,
beauty.
like everyone like here, do you not think that sometimes people can look for bad in people, say, And people can assume sometimes if you're nice and you chat to them and you ask them questions that you mean it badly. Like people think sometimes very over the top people, like what's going on
See,
with
that
them.
is a big, there is a serious problem in the world anyway.
Yeah.
People have this thing about them, as you said there, looking for the bad in other people. Why would you want to look for the bad in other
I'm
people?
not being nosy, like if I ask you questions.
Yeah.
I know maybe you might have grew up with a neighbour that your father kept telling you was nosy, so now you assume everyone's nosy.
Thanks.
I mean, go
Oh yeah,
away.
sorry, you forgot to mention that Martin and Hughie are neighbours.
First,
We're
our
neighbours.
next door neighbours, yeah.
So
But,
what are you telling me something
And I'm
about
getting
Martin?
red for already, huh?
I remember when Matt moved into where we grew up, you know. I actually
Yeah.
remember that day, and this is so bizarre, and this is why I always wondered, do I have a really good memory and why I get frustrated in ways or see the world differently, because I always think that I have like ADHD or something like that, which is why I'm very active and I need to listen to music all the time and all. But I've also got really good memory, which is like traits of behavioural disorders. And I remember the day you moved into the site and I was in, do you know, near the Omni where Mr. Perry's chipper was. I had food there and then we came up home and I remember your caravan like getting brought into the yard.
Into
Isn't that
the-
so
the
bizarre
next
how I
door, yeah.
remember that?
Yeah.
Isn't that really weird how I remember that?
What
But I
age,
actually
what
remember
age were you
that
then?
day. Oh God! So now I'm 28.
Yeah, about 8 or 9,
8, yeah.
So 20,
got that
20 odd
age.
years ago, yeah.
20 years
about
ago.
8, yeah. Now that's in that part of the site where we moved in beside.
Yeah,
next
he
door to
doesn't.
these.
Yeah, you moved up
But
there.
altogether we're about, like all our lives, about 42 years now in Ballymun.
So you would have been living in Finglas. Like
We
in
would have been
Cappelen
the
before that, was
first.
it?
No, we would have come from as an 8-year-old. We would have come from Longford, Newtown, County Longford.
No, but I mean, when you moved back as an adult, when I
We're,
was a
uh,
child, were
yeah,
you in
remember we-
Cappelen before that?
Yeah, we had this conversation before. Remember in the podcast
Yeah,
where we've been over and back to England a few times,
yeah.
but as I said, where our base was Ballymun, like for the last. Yeah, since about 8 years old, about 42 years altogether.
That's your.
It was in 1979 we moved to that site, and that was when the Pope came to Ireland, Pope John Paul II.
I thought you meant the man that used to live there,
Yeah,
but that is
no,
nickname.
not him, no, not him.
We had a neighbour,
had
that
a-
was his nickname, and I
No.
thought that's who he
Yeah,
meant.
that's right.
You mean the real
Was
Paul?
he a traveller
The
or
real,
a man?
the Pope, the real man. Yeah,
She
the real
means
man.
John
Pope John
Paul.
Paul II.
Was this fella?
That was back in
Was this
1979
fella
when he
a
came to
traveller
Phoenix Park.
or a settled fella?
So so the one I thought he meant is a traveller that lived in the site, but he actually means Pope John Paul II.
Okay, so I'm interested in the traveller who was called the Pope. Why did you call him the Pope?
Because I think he was called it because he used to always swear to the Pope or something.
Yeah, something
I
like
asked
that.
his family, like who lives in the site still, and they told me that.
Yeah, he had a habit of that. But then again, years and years ago, a lot of people had that habit of swearing. If someone
Is that
didn't believe
Irish or is that
swear to
traveller
the
swearing
swear
on
to the
everything?
Pope, swear to the Pope.
I swear my man's life. I
You
swear
don't
me-
want to see like two travellers in an argument, even if it's nice. There's 101 swears happening.
When you swear in your man's life, yeah,
Yeah.
what does it mean to you to swear in your man's life?
I
I
don't
swear
know.
my man's life. It means if I'm lying to you, my man's going to die.
Oh my god!
That's what it means. Do you not use
so
that
as
one?
people intend, what if a person still didn't believe you, even though you swear in your man's life?
But that's up to them. What I'm saying is, from my perspective, this
You're
is the
saying-
truth. I'm putting my man's life on the line here.
But it's become a phrase.
I swear in my man's life. Is
Yeah,
that
I swear on my granny's grave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think though we don't literally mean someone is going to die. I know
Do you
that's
think-
what it should mean.
Do you
but
you
that's
think
much
you
the way
nec-
it started.
do you
Like,
think you necessarily have to swear for someone to believe you?
culturally, in
That's
Ireland,
that's one thing I often thought about.
I think people say that because in the past they've lied and they're going, no, what I'm saying now is the truth. Because if you've never lied, well then you're not going to say that. You know what I mean? If lying is not part of your life, you're never going to have to back
But
it up going, I
does
swear
people
my man's
actually look
life.
at you then and think you're a liar? Is that what it is?
Yeah, or maybe they've been lied to before, or maybe they just don't trust you, but I swear my man's life, I'm telling the truth.
Yeah, but
Or
some,
does it just become a habit? Does that word just become a habit? I know loads
Yeah.
of people who swear. They swear on a lot of people swear on the Bible. A lot of
swear
people
to God.
Swear. A lot of people swear to God. A lot of people swear in everything holy. A lot of people swear in the heavens.
Martin,
That's
you know the phrase, oh my God?
Oh my God!
Like,
Yeah.
I think that's where it came from. I
No,
swear to
it
God,
doesn't.
oh my
If
God.
you use the word "oh my God," you're using it with respect. If you use the word "I swear to God," you're taking the Lord's name in vain.
yeah, but oh my god is like a phrase in the English
Oh my
language.
God is like a word you use if a person was stressed out, kind of.
It's like when
Oh,
travellers
my
say
God.
"Galyoon." It's a word of shock.
Yeah.
Or it can be a word of endearment. Somebody walked in and I don't know, their daughter walked in first time in their wedding dress and everyone went, oh my God. It could mean she looks amazing or they're emotional.
Say the word Galleon.
Galyoon.
Galleon, never heard it.
It's like a traveller cant word, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a word of shock.
Can be used for anything. Galleon, that word can be particularly used for anything, can't
But
it?
it's how we say
Look
it.
at the two travellers smiling at each other.
But it's how, but you don't think we
secret
know what
fucking
it
language.
means.
Well, yeah, let's have a go. It's
What
there.
the secret language?
It's the same word, but you mean it a million ways, depending on how you say it and the sentence you put it into.
Right.
But
Now,
that's
Now,
all
I tried to
slang.
explain that here a few weeks ago, right? We're doing a podcast here, right? And it was, I think it was with Judge, was it? Yeah,
Jimmy Judge.
Jimmy Judge, sorry. And
Jimmy Judgmental.
we were talking about a couple of cant words. So I was trying to explain to them that was, for instance, different travellers use different cant words.
Yeah.
But some of the words have the same meanings. Is that right?
Yeah, you could use some words in a million different ways because, as we said, it was originally a code language. Like, even ethnic groups within the Holocaust had code language they developed to speak with one another so they could speak in code. A lot of ethnic groups are. So travellers still now, it's kind of only coming into the mainstream conversations about travellers now properly.
Yeah.
So they're not as advanced in the society as other racial ethnic groups are. So travellers still kind of speak in that code language.
So
that
they,
I think was
they had an
element
oppressor and they were using this language so the
as
oppressor
a protection. But
wouldn't
now it's
understand
become
them.
part of our everyday language. And like, I've often found it amazing that people had a Spanish mother and a English speaking father, and they grew up and learned two languages at the same time.
Yeah.
Right? And I read that your brain becomes rewired, that you can learn language much easier when that's happened. But we kind of grew up like that.
That explains a bit there now.
We really grew up like
You're
that.
going to tell me you're super intelligent now, Martin?
No, I'm not.
For weeks you've been telling me that you're...
No.
We didn't
There,
grow
yeah,
up
yeah,
just
you have.
speaking
the only intelligent person in this room is Hughie Maughan.
No, you're
And you
you're
get that
smarter
into
than
your
me in
head,
so many
Dean.
other ways as well.
You get that into your head, won't you?
Yeah.
He was very smart.
What I was saying was, that brought me back to something, right? What he just said there about the different languages. It's the same. It refers to the same thing. You have somebody speaks English language, someone speaks French language, right? Now, they're having the same conversation, but it's in different words. So doesn't that say the same thing for different travellers who speak different types of cant?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But we can still understand the basic cant.
Yes.
Like, there's different forms of Spanish. There's Catalan Spanish, there's Spanish that's speaking the Caribbean, the Mediterranean, Dominican Spanish, all that. It'll go back to the original Spanish language. So the Celta, cant, gammon, whatever word you want to call it.
Yes.
Originally, it was called Celta, the traveller language, and it was a mixture of Welsh and Gaelic and words taken from that. This is like the history that I've been learned. And to be honest, there's not a lot of history wrote down about it anyways. So
No,
it's
there's
kind
not.
of something that people are only properly learning about now. And the Irish Traveller Movement, the one that's based in London, is doing a lot of research on it. Them words, we grow up listening to that. My sister's 5-year-old son can understand, well, he's 6 now, but from when he was about 4, he could understand what we were saying. So even we'd speak in code around him, about him.
He'd pick it up.
And he can pick it up. Like, if my sister said, like, if we reminded him and they were going to the pub and they didn't want him to, like, say he was 2 or 3, they didn't want him to understand what they were saying, well, then they could speak in cant. But now at this age, he completely knows what they're saying. So say she said to us, Crush his jail Hully at 9 o'clock. She'll say it like that so that he doesn't understand when he was about 3.
Say that and slow that down because
Right.
people are... I guarantee you,
translate.
people are only hearing this for the first time ever.
Right. So she said, Crush his jail Hully about 9 o'clock. She won't say it in normal English when he's about 3 because he'll start screaming, oh, I don't want to go to bed at that time. Because what I just said was put him to bed at 9 o'clock. Right? But so she'd say it that way so that he doesn't even know what she even said because he thinks it's cool at that
Are
age.
you letting me into a secret code here?
Yeah, he thinks it's cool to sit up with Grandad all night.
Yeah.
But now that he's 6, she couldn't even say that in front of him because he'll know immediately.
'Cause he's at the picking it up.
He's
He'll
at the picking
answer
it up,
say, no,
obviously.
I'm not going to bed. Grandad said I can sit up and all this.
So there's a few things. One is...
He learned all the signals.
One is you're saying stuff that most people in this world have never heard before. That sentence most people have never heard.
Yeah, obviously, because
So
travellers are
I'm
less
going to
than
get you to
1%.
explain it to me in a moment. The other thing is, are you letting me into a secret code here that, you know... Do you know what I mean?
Our teachers would ask because
You're
actually
opening
we
up a
teach
door
stuff.
into a world that has been set up by travellers over generations as a way of protecting themselves.
Yeah, but it's gone on. That's hundreds of years, Dean. Like I was reading even with travellers that possibly they were the first, well, travellers' ancestors are the first people that was maybe in Ireland. And wasn't it something like they said when the Celts or whoever it was came to Ireland, the people who, when Ireland got colonised, the people who were already here, the ones that were more impoverished, were the people that began a life on the road and didn't have any home abode, whatever the word is, because they didn't have money. And that's today's travellers, but that's like our ancestors years ago. So like, there's not a lot of history on anything.
There's not a lot of history, and I know Martin wants to come in for a second, but I just want to say this because when your mammy was on, she had her version of how travellers came about,
Yes.
and there's more information, there's more knowledge, there's more stuff that we can get to just widen out the story a bit more. Because she was saying, well, we came from Irish people who were thrown out of houses by British soldiers, and then
that's kind of what I just said.
Yeah. But there's a
right.
history before that as well.
Yeah.
And we just think there's a myth in this country that travellers just came from the famine. That's not true.
And they're just a social group.
That's not true. They're not just the people who were kicked out of houses during the famine.
No.
They existed before that. We were all kind of in this country. I don't know the history, and you, as you're saying, it's not written down in many places.
Well, if we go back if we go back hundreds of years, then if there was no such thing as houses, what would the population of the world be? Where would they live?
Tents, shelters.
Would they live in tents?
Your survival instinct.
Would they live in
is to build a
shelters?
tent.
They live in.
And if you go even
they
before
live in
that,
ditches. They
we
live in
were-
underground. What do you call it? Things.
As you're saying, where did we,
Bunkers.
where did we come from? Did we come from gypsies? Did we come
So
from
it
a
still
cave
makes-
in Africa? You know what I mean?
So it still makes sense. That story still makes a bit of sense.
yeah.
But it all depends on the knowledge that person has at that time, the knowledge they have gathered,
Yeah.
the knowledge they got from their parents or their grandparents or their great grandparents. It had to come from somewhere.
You tried to hear the
But
stories.
yeah, so even if people did come from, what did you say, Romany? Is it?
Gypsies, yeah.
If gypsies did come from Romany, that doesn't mean that all Irish people descended from there.
No, because we couldn't genetically. This is
Should
the
that mean,
conversation.
does that mean then that mean the whole world came from Romany? Is it?
No, so do you reckon that the whole entire world began would have been black, like in Africa? Do you say all humans came from Africa?
Yeah, there's a place in South Africa called the Cradle of Mankind, and
Yeah,
that's where the oldest human skulls have been found. More recently, they're finding older skulls in other parts of the world
But
as well.
the reason why them stories can be believed is because now we have genetic testing.
Yeah.
They reckon that there is that connection and that can possibly be correct. But the difference is with travellers, and even now, travellers still aren't all properly on record. Like travellers, not all travellers, not even just, we're not on about hundreds of years ago. I'm on about my grandparents' time. They weren't born in hospitals. They didn't go to mainstream school. They always moved here and there, so their kids were born in different places. They were christened in different places. Not everything is on paper. So the way my neighbour, non-traveller neighbour, can get their great-grandfather's documents because he was in the army and he's all his medical reports and who he married and where they came from. For travellers, for the most part, can't do that. So it's hard to back up your conversations. And it's only nowadays when people are better educated that they're actually standing up for what their own rights are and being able to do it in a correct and articulate way.
Yeah.
Because people 50 years ago didn't even know what the rights were. And they didn't have, their brain wasn't expanded enough to even know why that was important. And
Not only did they not know what their rights were, they didn't even know what rights were.
Yeah, exactly. Their brains didn't
There's
expand.
these things called rights, and I have them, and there's a list of them.
They were completely different people.
They were
they
like
weren't.
50 years ago, and Martin said this about his family and about travellers in general. Like, my ma was shocked by this. Travellers were living in tents.
Yes, that's right.
You know what I mean?
And that seems so far fetched, but it's not. But I
And
remember.
it seems sometimes
And
so
that's
far
not,
ago as well.
That wouldn't be. Let's say it wouldn't be an old memory.
No.
In our parents, in our say my parents or my grandparents or his grandparents.
Because
That
his
wouldn't be an
mother's
old
around.
memory. That's not a distant memory
His
for them.
mother's around. It's not his mother.
That's only a recent thing. 50 years.
My grandfather remembers it. My grandfather was born in a tent.
Yes.
In Moat. So like, this is what Martin is explaining. That's not like your grandparents are telling you a story their grandparents told them. This is like people that lives now.
Yes,
Only in their
that's
early
right.
70s, late 60s.
This is something they lived through.
And that's our oldest people because travellers die very young.
Now, the other thing about the back to that Romany thing again, right?
With gypsy people.
The gypsy people, right? That statement, wherever it came from, some sort of research states that all travellers came from Romany gypsies. There's no absolute complete evidence of that. Now, and the other thing about what we just said there, just because of that story came from one part of the world, again, doesn't mean all Irish travellers came from there either. So if the story collided, it doesn't mean that it should be contradicted, because it can be a fact that travellers did come from that part of the world also. But it doesn't take away the fact that Irish travellers came from Ireland and where they actually are.
Yeah, there's not just one origin.
So it's a mix of stuff. Let's not be totally confused that we're all one there. I don't think so.
So what Hughie was saying there that I find interesting, there's a number of things. One about the language is that if you know two languages, your brain wires differently.
To learn other languages quicker.
Yeah. So travellers have, for the most part, two languages. Yeah, they would speak English.
They can't and English.
And English.
And it's broken English. But you see that a lot of ethnicities with Spanish, there's a Spanglish.
Yeah.
The broken Spanish way of talking. And different parts of Spain, there's a million languages, but I don't know why I'm homing in on Spanish tonight. Yeah. I think it's because Spanish is so...
You look Spanish.
I look Spanish. That's where we're saying the gypsy thing there. There's different dialects.
I'm just like everyone tonight, the blacks, the Spanish,
and
everyone's getting
Spanish language, Martin, comes from Latin language and are Romance languages. So Spanish, Italian, French, Portuguese and Romanian all come and derived from Latin language, which was one of the first languages with humans, which is why they can understand one another. So there's different forms of Gaelic, which is something we learned the other day, and there's different forms of Cant, Shelta language, but we could all still understand one another if we needed to in that way of talking, because the words don't just mean what they literally mean. If you can put them into a million different contexts and just the body language way of saying it, I'd understand what Martin means if you needed to tell me something.
So there's a bit of your history tied up, stitched in to the language as well, which can, as you're describing
mix
there,
it with English.
Yeah, but it can also show us some of the origins of your culture and where you came from.
And be private.
Hidden in the words, how the words are formed and structured and how the sentences are structured, hides the origin story of your culture as well.
Yeah, and it all comes from that. It's all secret, isn't it? And the good thing about code languages is I had this conversation with my friend a few days ago, is you can do it in the middle of a conversation around people and they wouldn't even know you've done it. So he could say something to me very quickly, and you guys, say like you were here and there was another non-traveller there or whatever, you would just think subconsciously that he said something to me and you didn't hear him correctly to not understand, whereas you just wouldn't have understood at all.
I think that's where Scouse, you know Scouse?
Yeah, Scouse is brilliant.
For me, it's like that. And in Liverpool, when I was a kid and I used to go over and we were up to all types of stuff, robbing and all that type of stuff, right? My cousins used to use a secret language. So when they'd get pulled over by the police, they'd go, Abal, Rabbi, Mabates, Kaban, Yabu, Dabu, Abu.
The back slang.
Do you know what I mean? They'd use like a back slang all the time. And when I heard it first, I was like, these lads are taking the piss. But then you got into it.
Yeah.
And they do it so fast and natural, it's a code. And but it's a language they understand. It's not even an effort for them now.
But do you think it'd be good though if they did introduce it in school curriculum, because now they're only starting to bring in stuff about travellers and social studies and stuff, because you know in our history when we learn about the Holocaust and in Britain nobody knows that gypsies were one of Hitler's prime targets. In Auschwitz they have a plaque on the wall and it has Hitler's first speech he'd made when he was obviously doing what he was doing. And gypsies is in that. There was 4 categories. So Jewish people, disabled people, gay people and gypsy people were the 4 that he was like wanting to do an ethnic cleanse on to begin with. That's not taught in Britain and Ireland curriculum. And the only time it started to get conversation was last year or maybe early this year when Jimmy Carr done his set that went on Netflix and he made a joke in it. And take the word joke lightly, because if it was any other ethnic group, he wouldn't get away with it. And he said that nobody talks about the positives of the Holocaust. Sorry, nobody talks about gypsies being killed in the Holocaust because nobody wants to discuss positives of the Holocaust. That's not funny in my opinion. And that then, somebody got that, put a clip on Twitter and it was retweeted by Tyson Fury. And then it then started got loads of conversation online, and so many people, like celebrities, everyone was tweeting. I didn't even know the gypsies were killed in the Holocaust. So it goes back to everything we were talking about, how there's not a lot in the history books, there's not a lot of conversations, and we're not taught stuff. So that kind of goes into like what I was asking is, do you think it's good if they start teaching more about travellers in school and taught traveller cant language and stuff? Would that be good, or would that take
I think we're a way away from that. I think when that day does come, it will be amazing because we will embrace actually the different cultures in our country, the ones that we're embarrassed by and ashamed by. But I think before that, what we need to do is stuff like this. Is just have conversations.
Yeah.
Is just have chats.
It's happening though.
It's really
there's
happening.
There's a big change now.
And one of the reasons the stories aren't understood or taught or heard or anything like this is because for so many years it was just like, what the fuck are we talking about them for?
Yeah, because they want to be. A lot of people says this very ignorantly. They're like, well, how can you complain about being treated different? We're talking about the negatives, like the horrible stuff that happens. Like, say that the Sun or Sunday World or whatever, and they'll deliberately pick this headline because they know the reaction it's going to get. Say they printed some woman sues a restaurant for discriminating her for being a traveller. Go to the comments section if you need to see how society views travellers.
Yes.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah, but comment sections are cesspools.
I know they're always a cesspool, but there's always allies that stand up if people are being discriminated against for race or whatever. I know they do it for money and celebrities and weight and image and all of that.
But you can get a general tone is that there's just
a very bad tone.
A vicious disgust or whatever, a vicious tone, yeah.
So many people keep saying it. Oh, but travellers fought for their own ethnic status, so they want to be treated different, and now suddenly they don't want to be. And there's always that rubbish people says. But things is definitely getting better. If I look within the travelling community and outside of it, 5-10 years ago, things are so much more forward now.
Yeah, but is it about ethnic or status, something like that? Is that what travellers are fighting for, or are they just simply saying we're human beings, we want to be recognised as human beings?
Yeah, I think they're saying both of them things because...
Yeah, but what you're saying there, are people confused or are they being sarcastic?
That's the thing.
Saying that we're fighting for this, we're fighting for that.
Yeah.
We're not really fighting for that. We're just simply saying, again, we're human. Let's treat people as humans.
Yeah, and recognise me as a traveller for positive reasons rather than when you're name calling. Because you're happy to say I'm just a white Irish person when it comes down to it in a open adult conversation. But when you go to school with me and we fall out, you're happy to not view me the same as you.
Yeah, but it must be
me as different.
It must be the same as black people in the 50s and 60s in America when, white people in the South were going, who the fuck are you even to have an opinion? You know what I mean?
You're deemed 3/5 a human.
You're not even a human. Stop talking. And that, I think, sometimes is what travellers have faced. You know what I mean? Who are you to even put your hand up and say that you want to be heard?
Yeah, but the reality of something like that here where I'll be honest, unless some idiot comes out with that kind of talk, the problem lies within him. It's not the person he's talking to is the problem. The actual problem is that person themselves, because they're seeing people different.
Yeah, definitely. See, it's visually though, Dean. Seeing is believing to a lot of people. That's why a lot of people isn't understanding of religion, understanding of sexuality, and understanding of travellers is because you look at Martin, he's white, he's Irish white man, you're Irish and white, so how can he be racially different to you? So I think that's part of the problem, as well as the black person in the 50s, you can see he's black. You can see they're white. In my opinion, there was always going to be a revolution there. It's very hard to push that thing.
There's a physical characteristic that differentiates us.
It's very hard.
And they all got buried in one graveyard, didn't they?
Yeah.
In the end.
Viola Davis said in her Oscar-winning speech, the black actress, one of the best actresses ever, such a great advocate for black people's rights. She had done a speech when she won her Oscar and said, there's one place in the world all of the people who had the best potential is in the same graveyard. So, but in life, everyone with the best and same potential isn't viewed equally. If you're black, that's a hindrance at times. If you're gay, it's a hindrance. If you're a woman, if you're a man, if you're this nationality, if you're born into this type of underprivileged or whatever. But when you're all dead in the grave, you're suddenly all equal, and you're all the people who had the same privilege and seen as the same. You're all dead, but you're not when you're alive.
Yeah.
Treated the same.
Graveyards. The graveyard is a great leveler. It's a level playing field for everybody.
Yeah, because you're all like
You're
geared
all
together
bones
now,
and
aren't
dust.
you?
Yeah.
Doesn't make a difference what house you
Side
have.
by side, no matter how much they hate each other.
Shoulder to shoulder at last.
Yeah.
It's not nuts when you it's a bit frightening.
It's
you, but
brilliant.
It
It's
can
brilliant.
wake you up, though.
Absolutely. That's what I'm
Life's
saying.
very short.
There's an
As a-
opportunity in there
Dean,
for people to wake up a
question
little
for
bit.
you as well, Dean, right?
Go on.
As a countryman, yeah?
Yeah. Now, I don't refer to myself as a
Well,
countryman.
I'm referring
Well,
to
we
you.
do.
I am. I'm referring to you as, and
We're
he's
just
referring
three
to you.
ballymunners in this room.
We're
We
referring
are,
to you
yeah.
as, which you're outnumbered tonight. We're referring to you as a countryman, right? Where do you think that all this discrimination comes from, emerges from, or originates from, if you want to put it that way?
Insecurity and fear.
Fear is always it.
So, as humans,
Who do you think has the insecurity
I'm going
and
to
the
explore
fear?
that now in a second. As humans, we realise we die, and we're afraid of that, and we're insecure, and we try and do stuff to forget that. And one of the things that we do to forget that is acquire things like property and land. Yeah? And if you bring that out a little bit, you get stuff like colonisation. This country, England, for example, is going to colonise other countries and feel more powerful and strong.
Yeah.
To turn down the voice in the back of the head going, yous are all going to the graveyard. So I think that's where it comes from. It comes from that insecurity that we're all human and we all die. And to not listen to that voice, we listen to the other voice going, get more money, get more women, get more
And
lands.
forget about, yeah.
You know what I mean? And
To
if we want to get
compensate.
more lands, we're going to get it off those people over there, and they're going to be our enemies, and they're going to be the people that we conquer and treat shit.
Is that power, Dean? We're talking about power.
They think it's power.
Yeah, they
It's
think
not.
it's
think it's power.
But it's actually based
Well,
in
yeah, but
insecurity.
what really motivates the discrimination part in them?
I think trauma has a lot to do with it, though. Do you not think? Because I think trauma makes people go one of two ways. You can become more empathetic or become very heartless. That's the problem.
I think heartless is definitely one. There's no doubt about that.
I do think empathetic is another, though, Mark. Like, if you look at people, leaders who were very controversial, like Hitler, well, controversial doesn't even explain him. But if you look at his childhood and the financial situation he was in and the financial situation to people who he targeted were in when he was a child and the neighbourhoods he grew up in and how he was being compared, you can almost see why it made him so emotionally defunct to other people's feelings.
Yeah.
Now that's down to, are you born evil? Is there such thing as the devil? Or is it you're created
Are you
that
born
way?
without sin?
Yeah, are you born hurt? Or like
Are
all
you born
of this?
racist?
So there's a million ways. Like, I don't think you're born any of them things. I think you're created that way by your childhood and stuff.
The trauma, the environment that you're in, the cage. We talked about this before. It's not the drug that causes the problems. It's the cage
It's
that
the
you're in.
cage. It's the
environment,
thing that's there.
it's the society, the conditions of the society. So I think part of it is individual, but part of it is also culture in society. And in societies, for example, I'm going to say the British again because they went and conquered the world, yeah, and they
there's
created
a conversation about it right now. with
they
the women's
created a
football
lot
team.
of pain and trauma in the world. You know what I mean? That had in this country. We're still feeling the cycles and effects of the colonisation, pain and trauma. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you still see them issues in the north. Still now, there's people who are very, very patriotic and beyond patriotic. There's people still now who are so anti or so for.
And I think that all that patriotism and nationalism and anti this and anti that comes from insecurity.
Definitely wanting to belong to a group.
Insecurity, yeah, back to the same question again. Insecurity in what?
Insecurity in
Why
themselves.
would a person have to actually discriminate against another person?
Because you have issues, Martin.
Because,
That's
okay, so we
what I'm
have
trying
this
to dig
thing.
for. I'm trying to dig in here.
We have inferiority and superiority, yeah? So sometimes you have can't say that word, superiority complex.
Yeah.
You think you're superior to somebody else, okay?
Yeah.
That's kind of like what racism is. Racism is you think you're superior to this other group of people, this
'Cause you
other
were
race.
reared to
That's
think
where the
like
phrase
that.
white supremacy comes from. You think you're superior. But actually, that feeling is based on the fact that you, underneath all that, you're insecure.
Yeah.
You feel less. You don't
So-
feel complete. Because if you did feel complete, you would allow everyone just to be who they are.
Yeah, and you'd mix in any environment.
Right. I know we had a little bit of a conversation before. Do you think does prejudice or discrimination, does it come mostly from the public or from the governments themselves?
So we talked about this in an Irish
I think we did, yeah.
in an Irish
A little
context, for example. You know what I mean? So let's take travellers for a second as an example. Is the discrimination under which travellers live, is that institutional and government, or is it just in the general population?
Kind of both.
And I think there's a little bit of both. And because we've slagged off, the government and Dublin City Council on this podcast before because of their relationships with travellers. But also there's a perception or prejudice in society, separate from government, of travelling people, of refugees, of whatever. You know what I mean? So it's not all government and it's not all society. It's a little bit of a mix, I think.
It's always been carried on. And I always find that the weirdest thing. And you just said even about refugees and immigration. The people who complain about immigrants in Ireland. Ireland is one of the countries in the world that had the most people emigrate from their own country. Like, as
That's
we
right.
said, the famine, like Titanic, that happened because people were really poor in Ireland and were moving to America. So many countries around the world took in our people, our ancestors, as refugees, or travellers as well, as refugees, to seek asylum, to have a better life, because people were starving to death in our country. Ireland had, 8 million people before the potato famine, was it?
Yeah.
And then they lost 4 million, and to this day it's only been rebuilt back up to 5 million. How long ago, many years has that been? So Ireland, we had a lot of people that left our country, so we should be the most understanding.
1845.
You look at some of them people, and I know this is part now what we just talked about. Is it the government, the council's fault, or is it society's fault? I don't think that every person who says something like remember like the Ukrainian refugees that came in and then so they were put as priority on the council list and stuff. To me, that's wrong, completely wrong. But I also have the heart and understanding. Can you imagine what it would be like to live in a country and your own people that is supposed to be empowered to protect you, or whatever it is that's gone on, or neighbouring countries? What would that be like when you're just trying to seek protection for a better life? Because nobody would want to move to the other side of the world, or that amount of people wouldn't want to for no good reason. Do you understand what I mean?
Especially by force.
So can you imagine what that feels like?
Yeah, so
But
I used to do this thing
that's
where...
the problem, is the council should make it more fair, though, and then so it's both society and it's the council and it's the government.
I used to do this thing. I'd ask people when they got into that conversation about those people, whoever they were, those people are being treated, da-da-da-da-da. And I go, okay, so imagine that you're at home and you're asleep and your kids are in bed and you're with your partner and it's 4 o'clock in the morning and the front door comes in and a gun gets put to the back of your head and you're told in a language that you don't understand something, yeah? And you're forced from your house and you're put on a boat and overnight you arrive in a different country. You don't know where it is. They speak another different language. And you're put in a room and you're in that room for 2 days. What is it then that you would want? Well, you would want to know that your family is safe. If somebody offered you money and shelter and food and water, you would take it, wouldn't you?
Of course you would, of course. And it would humble you, well, beyond humble, that's not even the right terminology, but it would humble anyone to understand that, I think, rather than being so judgmental and saying this is why they don't have a career, or this is why they don't have a job, or they don't have a house or whatever. I get people's anger with people in power in their own country, but like them people moving over here and leaving all their family behind, some of them is probably dead, probably don't even know whether they're dead or alive.
Sad.
Can you imagine how that feels?
Yeah,
like
very
who'd get on a boat with their young children and try to get in illegally into a country, like for no reason, not doing it for any fun? Can you imagine how they feel doing that as a person?
Okay, so now imagine you go to a country and as soon as you get there, you're not given anything. You're just out on the street and you're roughing it and you're dragging your 3 kids around. What would you do to survive?
Anything. Rob the shops. I don't care what I'd have to do.
What would you do? You know what I mean?
Well, I would. That's what I'm saying. This is when people discriminate against people who have.
So the
done
alternative
stuff like
is that people in Europe where there's war, well, one is that they stay in the country where the war is and they just die. Yeah. The other one is that they move to a different European country, or they might even move to a non-European country. When they get there, you've got 2 options. One is they start to get some of their basic needs taken care of immediately, or they don't get any of their needs taken care of ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
another
that
thing,
creates two different kind of
that's-
situations. So which one would we like as a society? Would we like people just to be dropped here, like happens in, say, Greece and Italy? You have loads of migration where people are just arriving on the shores en masse. You know what I mean? And they've no support for them.
Do you think? Yeah, that's a good thing there. Do you think that other governments around the world, some governments around the world, have power over the Irish government?
I think that we're a very small economy.
Yes, that's right.
We're a small nation. We have a small population. You know, sometimes we've got a bigger microphone or a bigger mouth or bigger power than we think we have. You know, because of where we are located geographically. We're right in the Atlantic Ocean. We're between Europe and America. You know, we've got a lovely position. So we have certain leverage in the world. But definitely we get told what to do from time to time.
By
For
other
example, by
governments.
the Americans.
Yeah, we probably don't know what goes on higher up.
Right then.
The
The
Americans,
reason I'm asking that
here's
question.
one example of it. The
go on.
Americans land soldiers in Shannon Airport, and
Yeah.
we kind of just shut up and don't do anything about
Yeah.
it. And those soldiers are going off to do I don't know what,
God knows
all
where.
over the bleeding world. So we listen to the Americans.
Right. The reason I'm asking that question is because, say when we're going to call them refugees, right, comes into Ireland, yeah, they are taken care of, they're housed or whatever, say, looked after, basically.
Yeah,
if you
there's
like.
a list on our DocGov
Now,
website.
and I have to say thanks be to God for that, because by the grace of God that they are looked after, and they need to be looked after because they have the same human rights as everybody else, and they have the right to live the same as everybody else. But is the government in Ireland doing this by force? Are they saying, look, we have no choice to look after these people because they're coming from another continent or wherever other country they're coming from? And if we don't let it be seen that we're looking after these people, then we have to speak up to hire people in other countries.
Well, we signed up to the European Union. You know what I mean? The community of Europe.
Yeah, we work together.
So we're all
Yes.
in it together. So we're Europeans. So if something happens in somewhere in Europe, we all
I'll tell you-
stand with each other.
I'll tell you the reason why.
Funding-wise,
Tell you
you
the
mean,
reason
and
why.
all.
Well, just
I-
like
I'll tell you the reason why I
in
said that.
terms of war or whatever. You know what I mean?
No,
If-
the reason why I sort of brought that bit on there was because I've often heard people, now I'm not going back to the traveller thing again where we're pulling the sympathy card and the discrimination card. We're probably, people are sick of that probably. But on the other hand, they're not looking after their own people because they have that choice to look after them and if they want to or not. And I'm talking about travellers. So look at, the travellers are okay, look at, they'll fend for themselves, right? I'm just saying this, right? Now, but let's look after these refugees. And again, I have nothing against refugees because I believe in the eyes of God, everybody has the right to live and be fed and housed and clothed, same as everybody else. So therefore, are we doing this because we have to do it? The Irish government, they're really nice people. We're going to look after these people that come in here. We're going to take in so many thousand. We're going to house them, feed them, clothe them, whatever it might be. Because if we don't, we have to answer to up to such and such in such a country, other countries. So therefore, is this the reason that they are actually doing it? Because, again, the question I asked you, does the Irish government have to talk up and answer their duties to other countries? It looks like they do, and this is probably the only reason why they're taking other people in. As I said, my heart goes out to them, there's no doubt about that. But on the other hand, the travellers are okay, they're all right, they're our people.
Yeah, there is that opinion.
They're,
all rich.
the travellers don't come from another country. They're in our country. They're born and reared in our country. So we have full say over them. No other government has a say over them. So we'll deal with them as we like that. We'll just push them aside. Very simple.
Yeah.
It's not going to be highlighted, and it's not going to be spoken out in foreign countries about.
yeah, absolutely, it won't be
The
spoken about in
situation,
foreign
basically.
countries. So
The building is spoken about
But
in
as I
Ireland.
said, that's no disrespect to any like refugees or anyone that comes in here, because like I said, by the grace of God, everybody has to be looked after in the same way.
in times of war, all the rules go out the window. Like we've a huge housing and homeless problem in this country.
That's right.
But
Yeah.
there's a war on in Europe, and these mad bastards are threatening nuclear war.
Yes.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's not to be pissed around with. So in times of war, all the rules go out the window, and these people need to come to this country. That's just
right.
where it is. It's going to be tough, but imagine being in the bleeding country.
And
that's
rightly so.
the point I was trying to make. The other thing is, for travelling people in Ireland when there's no war. You're starting to find your voice, though. You're starting to find your voice. We're on a podcast that's called A Traveller and a Countryman.
Brilliant. Yes, definitely progression.
Ireland is starting to be less embarrassed by travellers.
Yeah.
And travellers are starting to find the words like, I have rights.
Times have evolved.
Is travellers starting to highlight stuff more? Is that what it is?
Yeah, they're less embarrassed.
And they're also, I remember being up in St. Margaret's, up in the Sea, and there'd be travellers going, I know big words. Yeah? And I'm like going, these lads are like 40 years behind the rest of the country.
I wish I knew a few of them.
These lads are like 40 years. This travelling community, culture, ethnic group or whatever, feels like it's 40, 30 years behind the rest of Ireland.
But it is in a lot of ways.
Look at where Ireland was 30 years ago. All the shit that we've achieved in the last 30 years, I can only imagine where travellers will be in the next 10 years.
Definitely. That's what everything we were talking about earlier on about stuff being written into history books and people understanding where they come from and getting stuff. In like 100 years from now, if things went the way they're going now, it'd be the way how there's so much understanding and history on black people in the world today.
Hughie, in 10 years' time, this shit is going to be so different.
Yeah, but it's to do with having allies, Dean. It's to do with having people that aren't just travellers. It's to do with travellers standing up for themselves, for each other, being able to be their own individual whilst being able to be a traveller. I think one of the main things, though, that will help travellers in society is travellers having a change within the travelling community and working on the internal stigma, because travellers, in my opinion, can shame each other more than non-travellers ever could.
That's right.
And not
travellers
work,
can
and
be
not
very
work with
against each other
and not trust each other more.
Yeah, and there's a hierarchy with travellers now. One thing the travellers lost, I feel, from speaking to older travellers, is the community spirit of travellers and helping each other. My grandparents tell me about when they all were just be camping in the field years ago. They did make food and it'd be given to all their neighbours, and that'd be how it would be. It's not like that now.
Yeah.
Like even the site that I grew up in as a kid and a teenager in the summertime, all your neighbours, the kids that played together, everyone would be out together chatting and mixing more, going to each other's weddings and parties, all of that. You don't really see that at all anymore.
Part of the culture has wore out, sort of. Yeah,
It's really gone now with travellers.
And I think the word war out there is interesting, because I think travelling people have been just worn down by the
society.
You can't park here, you can't do that, go move shift, the Christy Moore song. Get the fuck out of here, you smelly fucking K-words. Because you opened this kind of conversation at the very start going, you feel like the community, the sense of community is gone.
Yeah, really gone. But that's Ballymun as well. I think that's
but it's not
society
just
in general.
Ballymun. It could be society in general.
Yeah.
And I have the privilege of living and working in a community, and I think it's our biggest strength. The thing that we think is gone is actually, it's there if we just, nurture it. It's like the embers of a fire. If we just blow on it, it'll come up. And speaking about fires, me and Martin, hopefully, potentially, will be doing a campfire soon.
Yeah.
Because Martin says that's where a lot of conversations used to happen.
The campfire back then was the kitchen table today, as a fellow would say, where to have the people be having their chats, you know what I'm saying?
The community
conversations and stuff like that, yeah. But back then that would have been the campfire. But there's none of that now. It's almost gone. That's how rare it is. You might get that older one person. You don't see much of it up around here anywhere where we live. You might get that older one person maybe in some camp down the country somewhere, which would be very, very rare. Maybe just keeping on to that in the evenings, lighting their campfire and having a cup of tea and a chat. It's very homely. It's absolutely beautiful even to think about it.
But what I'm saying is we can just do it. We can just have a campfire. We don't have to ask for permission.
Yeah, but
we don't have to say it doesn't happen anymore. If it doesn't happen anymore and we want it, just let it bleed and happen. Let's do it. All we have to do is turn up.
Older travellers are great storytellers, I feel like that.
That's right.
Able to tell you a lot. Older people in general are like that, but older travellers, I think, especially, because that was an entertaining thing, wasn't it? That's right. As like how he explains. And now, obviously, I didn't grow up in them times, but I remember stuff like that still that I can relate slightly, and that has really changed compared to years ago.
Well, put it this way, say back then, obviously it's further back than my time, as you call it. I can barely remember it. No phones, no televisions, just a candlelight, basically.
That was exciting.
So the fire was there, pitch dark, and they're all out chatting, having a cup of tea in the chat, and every one of them would have a story to tell. Probably what they've done through the day. That would be maybe the biggest topics, probably. And of course, as conversation goes, one word leads on to another. Like it leads to different conversations. But it's like just even picturing the thing alone is lovely to be honest about.
Yeah, I think it was a freer
Nice and
time,
homely.
and I think that those freer times are ahead in the near future for travelling people. That freedom again, where we can just have those
I think
fast and free conversations that give us excitement. You know,
talk about say them things again. Right, I know sometimes I go back to the one thing we were talking about earlier on about travellers and say discrimination. Sometimes I think travellers are a big blame in that. A lot. There's a lot of blame in the traveller for that, because they're too laid back. They don't go forward, and like say, as again discrimination thing, right? They don't speak up. They don't talk about it. They don't want to make an issue about it, and it's happening for years and years and years. And this is why it keeps continuing.
and I can see why, because it's kind of like, sure, why would you bother? Nothing's going to change.
There's always been that. I remember that as a young fella growing up. The young fellas would say, why would I go to school when I won't be able to get a job? And it used to frustrate the life out of
And
me.
here's the argument against
Good.
that. I'm sitting in a room with two travelling men having a fucking podcast, so things will change.
Yeah,
Things
but you don't
change.
think as well, though, it's not just a case of not speaking up, not feeling like they can speak up, but not actually having the vocabulary or education of knowing how to speak up, because they'll feel like they're sat there, they're trying to explain something, you get somebody on the opposite side and they're cutting them in quarters with the questions they're asking them.
That's right.
And the person might not even be meaning to be rude.
Hughie, that's the genius behind this podcast, okay? I'm telling you now, is the words, is the articulation, is the phrases, is the language, is the conversations. This, for me, is like talking bollocks for travellers, okay?
Yeah, definitely. Talking bollocks for travellers. I love that. I love how huge that's become, that now that's like the example of podcasts.
Because working class people have found their voice. And travelling people now, because of technology and podcasts, are not fucking far behind.
Yeah, but Dean, I'll tell you what the difference is. But remember we were talking about how town can be very community spirited and supportive of each other. One of the things I think that has been hugely behind Talking Bollox' success, it isn't that probably that they're being smarter than anyone else, the guests are any better, anything else. I do think that town really, really, really supports one another. Travellers, I just don't think really support each other in the same way. That's a problem. Travellers are only 0.8% of the Irish population.
Yeah.
And as we said, travellers are more discriminatory of each other than anyone else, I think, is towards travellers, and judgmental. So travellers need to be more supportive of each other, because we have a very small... There's a lot of people out there who probably hasn't even really met many travellers. Didn't go to school with travellers, stuff like that.
I've said it loads of times
But
here
they get a
that
lot of hearsay, don't
99% of the
they? They do
people,
get a lot of hearsay.
99% of the people in Ballymun have never been to St. Margaret's. You know what I mean?
No, or they went years ago, or they worked there when they used to years ago when there was funding for like the dancing schools and all. And then there was the thing where we need to integrate and go to the, not have traveller only boxing clubs and traveller only schools.
That was a question I meant to ask Father Peter McFerry. We done a podcast here a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Now. And the one question I wanted to ask him, he was 40 years in Ballymun, is that right?
Yeah.
50 years, he said, was it?
Oh,
Yeah,
I think
from,
I remember him.
from like the early
Peter
80s.
McFerry, yeah.
In St. Joseph's Church, was that man?
He's
No, do you know Peter McFerry? He set up the Peter McFerry Trust as a homeless
the Peter
charity.
McFerry Trust.
He used to take in homeless boys into a tower block flat here in Ballymun
but
in the 80s.
why do I feel like I remember a priest called Peter?
You probably do.
Probably was,
He's done mass in Ballymun, like.
Maybe he's in mass.
Yeah.
I love that.
The question I wanted to ask him was, and I sort of wasn't trying to be ignorant about it, right? Was you just said there about so many people in Ballymun, and yet so many of them have never been on Ballymun site.
Yeah, I'm using that as an example, but
for
that's
a
just
priest,
that's across the country. I would
The
imagine.
reason I want to ask him for as a priest, basically, and who was doing so much for what you call the less marginalised, is it?
Yeah.
Whatever word you want to use for anyway. I meant to ask him, was he ever in Ballymun site? Where the traveller site is. The site we live in. I have never seen him in it. But I wanted to ask him that question with all due respect. Like, it wasn't
I
a
don't know if
tricky.
it would have been, because if you think
It wasn't a tricky question or anything. I was just simply curious, like. But I've never seen him in Ballymun site in 40 years.
So does there be priests go up there?
Yes, the priest does come over from the parish here. Now, I'm not saying he should be there or should go there. I'm just saying I was curious.
But can I ask,
did he ever go there? Maybe he was. Maybe he
what
did.
would be his purpose? Like, does a priest that come up personally invited?
Well, no, I'll tell you what. A priest, look, you know as well as I do, Hughie. A priest is welcome any time onto our site. You know that anyway, because anytime a priest comes onto a site, there's people out there asking him to bless our homes or bless our bays or bless our families. That's our beliefs, like, you know what I mean? So,
because years ago, what used to happen in Ballymun is the priests would do their rounds. They go around knocking house to house.
Yeah,
That's what I mean. That's changed now. This is why I'm asking.
Yeah, the priests used to from the parish up here. They used to.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, as I said, all priests would have been welcome anyway. You know what I mean?
So
the reason I was curious was because he was so long around Ballymun, and as I said, this is a question I meant to ask him.
Yeah.
And was he ever on the site?
To do the stations of the
now
cross,
you were saying there, why would he go there? My opinion would be that if he's a priest that deals with a lot of homeless and poor people and all that sort of stuff, yeah. But Ballymun site itself, it's a community of travellers living in the centre of Ballymun. So it would be like a sore home, you know what I mean? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, but do you think he would have... see, there's a lot of people who don't come into the site because they feel like that's very much its own place. And yes, it is. Like, my friends, I'll be honest, I have good friends I went to school with my whole life. They get scared and they tell me I don't mean to be, but they genuinely feel scared, Martin. And they're just saying I'm not meaning to. It's like my cousin gets scared and she will cancel a taxi if it's a black man driving it. And I said, what's wrong with you? She's like, I don't know. I don't understand why. But I'm not racist. I don't care what anyone is. But when you think of it, that's microaggression racism, because it is.
Yeah, and it's kind of like vulnerable. Like I was going back earlier on.
Because
Where do we get this from? It's vulnerability.
No, I'm on about my non-traveller friends.
Right.
Won't, they do come into the site, but not a lot of them. A lot of them make excuses and all, or don't come to family parties or whatever I invite them to. But I know why, and I always tell them I'm very open-minded. I won't get offended. You don't need to tell me another reason. And I'll try my best to try and make you feel comfortable. But it truly is like going into a room full of Russian people and you not being able to speak Russian. In a lot of ways, if a non-traveller...
Culturally, there's a lot of
stuff. It's so different.
Yeah.
But you can still fit in there and understand that everyone that can relate to each other in some way.
So you have that kind of, you feel a bit vulnerable, a bit insecure. There's the prejudice, as in you're prejudging these people. There's the preconception that you have an idea of what these people are like before you go in.
So it's the same thing
I think the way to
priest.
get over that is to go in, and that's why I go into St. Margaret's almost daily now. I just go in, and no longer in my mind or in my heart is there a division between me and the people in St. Margaret's.
Yeah, but that division, Dean, was the other way around years ago. Because I remember if I seen like non-travellers in the site, or you seen a priest in the site, however, and you'd think we weren't reared up in Ballymun, or we didn't go to school, but it was weird. It was like, why is there country people in the site?
And that's where you get the whole. That's where you get the whole country people phrase from.
It'd be like seeing guards in your estate, and they're just parked up there, and they're out talking to someone. You automatically think there's something going on. So we'd see you as a kid coming into the site.
Like so Hughie, if someone drove around the site, say, right,
not now.
No, not now. Say 10 years ago, right? If someone drove around the site, and it wasn't a traveller, right? And someone said to you, "Who's in that car?" How would you describe him? What would you say?
I thought it was a country fella. He's probably here for some other
reason.
reason.
Yeah. So we said that
so
before.
So what I think is you're here to do like, are they in looking for volunteers for something? I'd never think they're up just visiting their friend.
Dean, remember
I think they're looking for volunteers. They've got summer projects or something's going on in the centre.
No, yes.
This is what I would just automatically assume.
Yeah, the settled people are bringing something up for the travellers to do.
I didn't see them or something went wrong.
Remember I was telling you about, you were asking what's a countryman? He just answered the question there. I told you, remember that.
No. So the example for me is always the Mexicans call anybody who's not a Mexican a gringo. You know what I mean? Doesn't matter where you're from. If you're from America, if you're from bleeding anywhere that's not a Mexican, you're a gringo.
No, but American wouldn't be a countryman to us. He'd be a foreign man. He's an American.
Yeah,
or
but
might be offensive to say he's a Yank.
Well, the story was that if a person came in driving in a car, you didn't hear him speaking, And
No, but
you
you'd know they were non.
No, but you might know if he was American. I know, you know he wasn't a traveller. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know he
That's
was
the
American
point.
though till he opened
You
his...
wouldn't know he was American
till
till
he
he
opened his
speak,
wallet.
right?
Yeah.
And so the first thing you'd say, no, I think he's a countryman.
Isn't it weird though, Martin, that you can tell?
So that's where we got the
that-
traveller and the countryman.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how the. But
Where
it does
he's from.
matter how they dress or whatever, because that's how you can see they were travellers subconsciously, even if you didn't know who they were.
So we had this
like it's
discussion.
how the wife wears her hair,
had
it's
this
how the
discussion
children
about-
are acting in
Yeah,
the car.
yeah.
You can just tell they're travellers.
There's physical characteristics that tell you somebody's a traveller.
Is it, yeah, that's right, we said that before as well. Is it that
And what are they? I'm
atmosphere-
interested in.
Yeah, is it that atmosphere that we create ourselves?
Well, it is that. It's body
Has to
language,
be-
it's
yeah,
atmosphere,
yeah.
it's familiarity, subconsciously.
From 200 yards, he has a big traveller head in him.
I can say the Martin's a traveller, but I can tell
Yeah, but
just...
Dean, I need a haircut. So
But I
don't-
can tell how he's talking to his friend, or how him and his wife are talking, how him and his children.
The body language,
I can just
the movement.
tell. Yeah.
I think it's that. I think it might be just sort of that roughness or something, is it? It has to be something
I
like that.
don't know. It's probably.
Nobody can answer that
But
question.
you
can
look
they?
at Hughie. Hughie's hardly rough.
I didn't say he was rough. I said you, Dean.
Ah, very
Yeah, but
good.
Dean, do I sound like I'm from Ballymun? I sound like I'm from Mullingar, do I?
You have a little bit of a draw like that. Something
Yeah.
like this in your voice, like
Yeah.
that. I can't
So
really
do you know
do-
he was a
it's very
traveller, Dean?
soft.
Now, Dean, here's a question for
From
you,
your
Dean.
accent, I can definitely tell you're a
Dean.
traveller.
You can.
Yeah.
You can definitely tell.
100%.
I think you're wrong. I have to correct you on that. Because if I seen Hughie, if I didn't know him, see him on the street, I probably would never know he was a traveller.
Yeah, but see, Martin, I'm very well cultured in a way. Like
I thought you were going to say you're very well groomed.
No,
Hughie, do you, Hughie,
there's a
do
lot of
you,
very well groomed travellers can be very
Hughie,
good
do you,
looking. A lot of them.
if you were around the countryman now, would you change that accent a bit? Like,
No, God, never would I change it. I don't know if there's
don't?
no vocabulary might change, because why would I say Gallion to a countryman? Do you know what I mean? Your way of talking will change, but I'm definitely not changing my accent, or I'm definitely not doing it deliberately.
would you
if you
change
went
the
to
voice?
London-
Would you change the voice?
No, I'm always completely
Will you
myself.
try and talk like a countryman? You will.
No, I'm always me, but I'm sure I
Because
have
Dean is always trying to
different...
talk like a traveller, you know that? He's always,
Yeah,
he's a
now
wannabe
Dean,
traveller. People don't know that, but he is a
cultural
wannabe
appropriate.
traveller.
No, Martin, I think that I definitely have a way of talking to travellers, a way of talking to non-travellers, a way of talking to my English friends, a way of talking to... the way I speak to my mother is a different way I speak to my sister.
Is there anybody who doesn't understand you, like any like group or culture, like Americans or something like that? Would they understand?
No, they just think I'm just Irish. A lot of them don't even know what Irish travellers are until, like, not that I introduce myself as that, but if I spend enough time around them and they ask about where I come from, they're not really understanding. And a lot of the time, they only know gypsies from the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Like, the girl is a gypsy in it and stuff, because gypsy is a universal umbrella term that the world has heard, but there's a lot of groups of people that kind of almost fit into that category. Sinti people, Romani people,
Yeah,
Roman
the American
people,
kind of
traveller
Disney
people.
version of gypsy is kind of like, you know.
But it's very negative still.
Yeah, it is. And I've seen it in the new Lord of the Rings thing that they done. They have these kind of gypsy traveller type Irish
Like itinerant people.
Yeah, and they just live out in the wild and they have this wispy Irish accent. And it's there. It's kind of like the Disney way of doing Irish travellers.
It's like in America, especially in like in southern United States, so like in Florida and places like that, and Virginia and all. They have, from watching a lot of American reality shows, and when I done an American show last year and American television, I learned this, and it is so offensive. So do you know if someone was conned, they have a word that's, I feel like I've been gypped.
Right, okay.
And it comes to the word gypsy, like I've been
Gypsy, yeah,
gypsied, I've been conned.
Is that right? Yeah.
That's so offensive. And I've heard that on so many shows, like the MTV shows and all, where you speak like that. And that's what it means. I've been conned, I've been gypsied, I've been gypped. That's
Yeah,
so rude.
It is if their
'Cause
intention.
that's the world's opinion of gypsies, is con people.
It is if that's their intention. If it's just a word that has grown into their culture and they're not using it. Do you know what I mean? They're not using it to offend
it's
people.
like saying knacker in Dublin. It's become so normal because my friends, I've only started like really toning it down now, and I've known them my whole life, and I truly believe they're not racist to travellers. I'm a friend who come into the site, whatever. I know that I'm saying subconsciously they have limits with stuff like that, but they would say words like that, and I always ask them, think of the types of situations and the types of people that you say it in. So it's always like, their friend's bike got sold, or the fucking knacker that done that, or she looks like a knacker if somebody looks scruffy, all of that. Then you look at the negative stereotypes of travellers in society and they match. So you might not even be meaning it, but that's where it comes from.
Yeah, or somebody does something, they take your food off your plate and somebody goes, oh, you big.
You're almost comparing them to the traveller, if you know what I mean, because you think of traveller in a bad way, but you don't mean to, because they're reared like that and they're hearing it. But this is where we're trying to go against it, I suppose, and try to change that.
So you were bringing up some good stuff there about the internal stuff within the traveller community, and about sometimes you're your own worst enemy or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And some of the shame and some of the hierarchies and all this type of stuff.
Yeah.
And by hierarchies, I mean, like, a very simple one is men and women. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Men act a certain way, women act a certain way.
Yeah.
Men are treated a certain way, women are treated a certain way.
Yeah.
And one way that we can kind of address that, get over that, talk about that is on podcasts like this. And so Martin was asking me, where do you think this podcast is going? And I was explaining to him, and he also asked me, what do I want to get from it? And I was explaining to him a situation where I was with a group of traveller men, and one of them just had a lot of shit going on in his life. And I stood there for an hour and I listened to him and I empathised with him. And at the end of the conversation, I gave him a hug and I held him.
Yeah.
And then we continued to talk for about another 10 minutes.
Who was he then? Or maybe you don't want to mention his name, do you?
No, I won't mention his name. But
No, you don't need
this
to.
is any traveller man.
Why didn't be fair to him?
Yeah,
anyway.
any traveller man. So at the end of the conversation, we chatted again. At the end of the conversation, he said to me, "Can I have another hug?" And I fucking...
He said?
Yeah. I nearly start crying.
So he was feeling
And I
that
had no
then.
problem crying, but it was just a lovely moment. And I think that that's where this podcast is going.
It
It's
must have
going
been-
into that vulnerable space. So
Yeah.
the reason I said that, because I texted Martin, this is where this podcast will be successful if we do this, if we have courage. And I'm reading this from a text I sent to Martin. If we have courage, if we take a risk, if we be honest, if we be vulnerable, and if we open our hearts.
We nearly had a fight about that as well, Hughie, honestly.
Did you?
Yeah, we did.
Why?
It must be that particular day when I said to him, what are you talking about?
Because he was going, I am all them things.
No,
And then
no, I didn't say that way, no. I didn't say
You
that.
kind of did. And then I
I
think
said,
he
Dean,
went...
who do you think you're talking to? For 1 second, I said, you're telling me you have courage. And what else, Dean? What was the other one? Be vulnerable.
Be vulnerable. Because we were having a conversation about stuff that we don't... we mightn't put in the podcast, like if we get a guest on and he might say something that we were discussing that travelling people just mightn't be ready to fucking hear, you know?
It might not be traveller people in general.
Yeah.
It might be just me.
It might be just Martin,
It's,
actually,
it's
yeah.
possible it's just me.
Yeah.
Because I have, let's say how's I have my things to think about in life also. You see, I have a big family. You understand? There's things I don't feel comfortable talking about. And if I don't feel comfortable about talking about certain things, then I think the best thing for me to do is not talk about them.
Yeah, you
That's
have to
good.
respect boundaries.
So
Yeah,
what
you
Hughie
know.
was saying was there's certain things I think that are coming up in the travelling community. It's a moment in time for travellers to go, you know what? We can probably start talking about this one now.
Unless, do you know what? For me as an individual, I'm happy to get as vulnerable, as uncomfortable as I can. But I think, but Dean, that's a space I'm used to. I don't know what it's like to kind of necessarily fit in. That's probably why I'm comfortable, like on camera. Why I always wanted to do stuff like that is because I never grew up. I wasn't a popular one. I was always weird. I was always different throughout my whole life. So me being vulnerable and uncomfortable is very familiar to me. You've got to understand that. I never fitted in. I never was like other people. Obviously, I have characteristics and traits and stuff from travellers, from Ballymun, from everything. I'm not saying, obviously, I don't relate to anyone. I was Ballymunner and traveller through and through. But as an individual, I never really felt like I related to anyone. I never felt understood. But I do think that the only times things do change is when we start to get uncomfortable. You have to push through stuff. And when you come out to the side of that, you realise it's not actually that uncomfortable. You think it is, but it's not. You think it is.
You've built it up in your head. It's like your mate in the taxi. Going into the traveller side was actually all right.
Yeah.
I didn't have to turn the fucking
My
taxi
cousin
around.
won't get in a taxi with a black man. We were coming home from a pub in Coolock, And she would not get into a taxi with the man who was black. And I said, hey, can you hurry up and get into the taxi? I want to go home or I'm leaving you behind.
Oh, you had
We got
exactly
into
the
that, and he was the
same.
nicest man ever. Nicest man ever. And I don't know whether because I was drunk or not or because she really annoyed me. But I told him. And then we had a big conversation about it. And he had a full Dublin accent. Not that that matters if he didn't. But the point is, again, he was viewed as different. He was probably more Dublin culturally than what she was. And just because she's white and has Irish ancestors, she thinks they're different, and you're not. It's to do with how you're conditioned and what you're raised up as, and how you're brought up. And it's not always negative. It's like, as I said, the Dublin people using the word knacker like it's going out of fashion. Knacker drinking. My child looks like a knacker. She needs a bath. It's appalling. It's disgusting, but it's not always meant like that. It's always a horrible thing. It's like the CUNT word. It's always going to be disgusting and horrible. But imagine there was racial connotations attached to that see you next Tuesday word. This is kind of what it's like. Do you know what I mean? It's just a
Or
horrible word to
connotations
some
of
people.
superiority or inferiority.
For sure. That's everything in this world is men, I think, as well. Men don't like to be vulnerable at all because you're reared to be the strong one, the protector. What Martin, I think, even means by, like, I have people to think about this, he has a family, they have kids, they have grandkids, and the travelling community, how it can be. And
He has to be the silverback.
he feels
The,
like
the gorilla
it's-
in the you know what I mean?
it's like somebody being very much in the public eye. They feel a responsibility to everything they talk about in case it comes back to bite them on the arse later. The travelling community is a bit like that. Everyone can be very judgmental. Everyone knows
And
each other's business.
That's right. Yes, that's exactly.
It's like
what-
being famous.
And the travellers are the first people that will criticise you.
They will throw your past into your face,
There's
and
no
they'll
mistake
keep.
about that.
They will keep receipts, and we live in a social media technological world.
And how does that cycle of throwing stuff back in your face get talked about or challenged or
It
changed?
doesn't get talked about. It's only getting talked about by people, I think, that are already were the ones facing the adversity. The travellers that's gay, for example. The women that didn't really live like the typical or average traveller woman did and got all of that shame within the community. The people that are already sort of on the outside. That's why I live in a traveller's side. None of my cousins or anyone that I know that ever come out as gay, not that their families disowned them, Ran. They never lived within the traveller world because they felt like they were already different. But why can't I be both of them things? Why can't I be?
Yeah.
Because you are anyway. You're just denying it.
It's too judgmental of a situation.
So I remember the episode my ma was on, and she stood up to physical abuse in our family by saying
Domestic violence.
that's not going to happen anymore. She stood up, and then when her friend's baby was taken off her, my ma said, that's not going to happen to me. And I think that those people are the people that can bring around the change. The people who stand up either individually, like yourself and Martin doing a podcast, or collectively going, that's just not going to happen anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're sick of that. It's not good for our community. It's not good for our culture. Backbiting and vexing and throwing shit back at people is not good for you.
And it doesn't work in 2022.
Well, let's
because the
say
world
it's
is too evolved.
it's not a healthy environment to be living in.
It's
It's
absolutely
disgusting. It's horrible. But and it brings you down. I hate it. Even now just thinking about stuff like that. I really do try to separate myself from a lot of things, and I forgot about that when I lived in the UK for so long, and I can remember now why I really wanted to move away, and that was so I done it in such a dramatic way, in the sense that, like, it's almost like I lost my own sense of identity or whatever, who I was, which wasn't healthy either. But I can remember now that I'm getting older and trying to heal things and better myself, I can remember why that happened, because you just find things so difficult. You just do. You can have stuff to do with family, stuff to do with the community you're from. Things can clash. And I'm very respectful. Like, I think, like, if you want to be whoever you want to be, you be that person. I'm fine with that. But I hate that thing of things being pushed onto other people. I just don't like that. And I think it subconsciously angers me so badly, because it goes back to my childhood and how things were for me. I think that's what gets me nerves about tradition. And I had such a bad view on any tradition, any religion and all a few years ago. And I don't now, because I recognise that was unhealthy as well. And that's not okay, because there's good people. Like, tradition can be great. Religion can be amazing. All of these things can be so fantastic. But there's negative sides, like there is everything, but you can't tar everyone with that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, your tradition and your religion has silenced me because I'm not accepted in it.
Yeah.
And that silence is driving me mental, so mental that one, I want to leave.
And I'd
Two,
rather
I don't
be
want to
dead.
be.
That's
I don't
how
want to
felt
be
as a
here with
teenager.
yous.
Yeah, and that's a bad thing. So I think with the travelling community is things are
But
evolving,
where
but
does
we
it
need
all
to
come
accept
from
that.
then? Where does all that come from? Is it because people are judging people?
Yeah, it's horrible. It's like
People
when
are looking
Well, it goes
for,
back
as I
to
say
the question
again,
you asked a few minutes ago. Where does all of that other stuff come from? It comes
Stigma and
from
prejudice.
vulnerability. It comes from insecurity. People are insecure. People aren't confident in themselves. People have been kicked down and oppressed for so long that external pressure has gone inside in the individuals and into the communities.
Do you think
and
it's-
it's eating them from the inside out. I don't think it started like that. It wasn't like that, I don't think, 50 years ago.
No.
You know what I mean? And I think that travellers, for example, in this country are the only ethnic group that, as a society, we try to get rid of.
Yeah, but that's kind of as I was explaining earlier. There were just people sees and believes, so they just look at you just as a white person. So let's get rid of this whole pretend thing that you're different. I think that's how society has seen it. No, I think as well one of the problems is where things come from is people feel very vulnerable alone, and they want to be part of a group. They want to be part of something. So that's where I think hierarchy and privilege and superiority comes from. Is like that thing of, I'm a white person, I'm part of this, and we're better than ye. Like there's that thing I think that happens
Yeah,
as well.
I'm this family, and our family's better than
Travellers are like
your
that with
family.
money.
That's right.
You're from a certain surname, and they genuinely, and I wouldn't marry somebody of that surname.
So you
like you
think-
have all of that with travellers. It's disgusting.
So what happens is their vulnerability or their insecurity actually reverses, and they get this. Let's all stand together in this small group against that other group over there.
Yeah, very like that. But things are better. There's I've had so much support for stuff I've done from travellers. So much support. And I'm as much a traveller as anyone else is, and as much my own person as anyone else is, and everything else. I have a great support from travellers. So like I don't wanna it appear like I'm just sat here and I'm just knocking people. I'm trying to answer questions as to why I think we have problems, and the shocking statistics, like 17% of travellers die of suicide, 50% of travellers die by the age of 38. Like that's shocking. That's a third world country statistics in a highly developed country that Ireland is, and 15 years younger dying life expectancy. 43% of traveller pregnancies have birth defects, end in miscarriage, or have stillbirths. Like there's shocking statistics that if it was any other ethnic minority, the world would be talking about it. So you have to try and think of why are these things happening? How do we change that? And how do we support that whilst keeping and retaining traveller culture and tradition? Which parts of it is negative that doesn't suit 2022, because things your grandma done in the 1960s and the 1950s in Ireland, in Irish culture, doesn't exist today for a reason.
Marrying at 14 and 15
it doesn't work.
doesn't exist.
It doesn't work now. It doesn't work in today's society. So parts of the traveller culture from years ago, as much as people like the older travellers look at it as precious and nice, parts of it, it's nice to them because they done it in a positive way in a time when it worked. It doesn't work now. And that's part of the problem and the oppression and the mental health is you can go on a phone and see the entire world, but you might feel very, very, very oppressed and held in for traditional reasons, whether you're a woman, you're a man, whatever it is that you're being told this is how things go and this is how you live a good life and a happy life and a life that makes your family proud and you proud and whatever. Some of them things doesn't work now. You can go onto the phone and see the entire world, but you feel very closed in. Do you know
at
what
exactly
I mean?
the same time, your worldview has changed, but you look out your window and the family across the road are still going through the exact same shit they have been.
Yeah, and it's like there's a lot of things as well, like where people
Or not even the family across the road, the family that you're in.
there's a lot of issues with surnames, as I said, like people that carry on problems from years ago, stuff that started when some of them aren't even born. Me and my friend had a conversation that she lives in the houses at the back of the site. There's a wall between us. And that wall divided what was literally two different worlds when we were teenagers growing up and children. The same country, the same laws, the same school, the same town, but two completely different worlds. So for her life and a girl that typically grew up in our site, they couldn't have been any different, negatives and positives. But they literally, there was a wall between them.
And the wall wasn't just a physical wall, it was a psychological wall,
was
it was a
everything.
cultural wall, it was all types of walls.
And I understand that divide because I lived in both worlds. This is why I was different to other people growing up. And I get it. I see both sides.
So you're in a unique, you've got a privileged perspective.
But at the one time, Dean, it's a privilege now as an adult, but as a teenager, it was like mental torture.
Yeah.
Because it was, I'm being very honest with you, it was like mental torture because you're trying to, you just feel very different, don't you? You feel very different. But look, as I said, there's positives to it. I think a lot of my personality comes from the fact I grew up as a traveller, like a lot of great things. I'm very much a people's person. I'm very community spirited. I can try fit into social situations. The religion I've been growing up with that I said I had negative opinions of for a long time, but I don't think that way anymore. That was just like going through toxic times. All of that I'm really thankful for.
You're generous.
All of those things I'm thankful for. Definitely. But I definitely have sides to my personality that people might not stereotypically associate with travellers, that I see just as me as an individual. And I went to school with non-traveller people. I lived in England for years. I've done TV work. I've been in environments that a lot of other traveller men my age haven't been in. So how can you expect us to be very similar? Well, how can we be? Because it's like we've lived two very different lives. They could be married since they're 17 years of age. And there'll be a lot of positives to that. But there might be negatives to it as well. Because I'm not the same person I was at 17 that I am now at 28. And how much might you have evolved and changed, you know what I mean, since then? So, there's negatives and positives to every side, I think.
Very interesting, Hughie.
I am optimistic. I think that's probably my default position is optimism. If we can have dialogue and conversation that's open and honest and we can show vulnerabilities, we take off some of the masks or we get rid of some of the walls that we have inside our own heads and hearts. I'm eternally optimistic if we can do that. And, for society in general, for Irish culture, for traveller culture, having conversations, I think, is where it's at. And we talked last week when we were talking about war and peace and Putin and these lads.
Yeah.
All you have to do is sit down and talk and sit down and want to listen to each other and want to feel the other person's pain or perspective.
Yeah. I don't know. There's so many things I think that needs to be focused on, but it's getting there. You have this podcast. You and Martin are doing this podcast. I've spoke about a lot of things. Lots of people. There's definitely a voice. It's slowly coming. I feel definitely slowly coming, and things is definitely changing. Even 5 years ago, things are much better now than back then. But I think travellers need to find that thing they used to have years ago, of a community trying to help one another, because I don't think many people had any money back then.
No.
They had to help each other. And this is what older travellers mean about how younger travellers, money has gone to their head. I never knew what they meant by that until I'm now older. And I know what they mean.
Yes.
Is the more people have
The
now,
more they want.
they don't really feel the need to need each other anymore.
That's right.
And then you still have them problems with travellers where, as I said, there's a culture clash and a generation clash. So you have people that's kind of going their own way while still being part of a community. And it clashes in every place. Do you know what I mean?
I think one of the things that I see in society in general is that we're running away from something, whatever it is, our pain, our trauma, our shame, our fear of dying, and we're running towards something, and it's usually money, drugs, sex, whatever it is.
All of them things.
So we're running from something and we're running towards something.
Yeah, we're
chasing.
compensating.
We're chasing something and we're running from something at the same time.
I think that's the with travellers where you get to fighting and the boxing happens is that's an outlet. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
That's a bit of an outlet where they're compensating in that way. That's a bit of an outlet.
Yeah, and I think I think it's a healthy outlet, just like this conversation. If the motivation for this isn't to slag off everybody.
Never.
The motivation for fighting isn't to hurt the other person all the time. It's just to have a physical release for your.
But it's an old-fashioned mindset, Dean. I know you're saying that if two fellas are out and had a fair fight like that, of course that's much better than the other things you hear about. And they're two grown men, and if they're good enough to keep it up with each other, we're good enough to throw a punch at each other. But when you think of it, it is quite a negative thing to think.
Yeah, but I done jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I done jiu-jitsu for 4 or 5 years. It was the best bleeding thing I ever done.
Yeah, but that's individual. But when it's kind of a thing that's becomes a cultural thing for an entire community, not everyone's always going to relate to that, but it has to be perceived that you do. That's the issue. And it's gone from that now. It doesn't even solve anything anymore. There's too much pride, in my opinion. It's gone from two fellas having a fight and it being over and done with to then even more of an issue because the other fella's getting on Facebook, I bet the best man in your family, and vice versa. So it makes things worse.
Yeah,
Originally, it was a great way to solve things with travellers. It doesn't solve anything today. It's too much pride.
It can solve a lot if they can. Let's say if they can really agree on a handshake afterwards
Yeah.
and walk away from each other, but 9 times out of 10 doesn't happen.
Dane, the women is as bad. Like I've seen even stuff like that happening, and the women is on Facebook right afterwards. So proud of my man. So this and so that.
That's stirring the porridge again.
Yeah, and then before you know it, somebody comments underneath. If they left out, if there was no social media, maybe then it's easier. But I suppose it was a great way to solve things originally. But I don't know if it works now. As Martin said, if people did shake hands, forgot about it, two fair men told the rest of the families to
walk
shut
away
up,
from each other. Yeah,
walk away.
and let that be the end of it. Then
It doesn't work now. I've seen fellas being like that, and then to be able to have a drink in the pub, like people in my own family, they're friends with fellas that I remember as a kid they'd had a fight with, and this would be an arranged boxing match. It wouldn't be just like they had a drunken scuffle once or something.
yeah, they mightn't even want to fight in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But do you think as well the problem is now it's not just two traveller men having a fight for their own reasons with each other. It's he's from this family, he's from that family. Might not have even met each other. He's just the best man in that family, as I said, the best boxer in this family. And then they come and fight each other. And I often think to myself, where is your aggression to punch that person?
If you never fell out.
Some of them haven't met. I remember that happened a few years ago with two.
So why would they match them? Why would they be matched?
Because the two family surnames have had issues. Then they'd had a fight. Their cousins all had a fight.
Well, it's
before.
kind of
So
like
now they're
it's kind of
standing
like
up now they're standing up through pride for their
for
name.
their name.
so
So
okay.
sad.
So here's widen it out a little bit. Irish and English, two people who have never met.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go and kill that man.
It's war, isn't it? It's war in
Do you know what I
general.
mean?
I'm going to bomb up that city and then you're a hero in your own
Black and
country.
white. I've never met this person, but I'm going to go and kill them.
It's nuts. It's scary how the human brain can be so conditioned and manipulated to believe things is correct.
So fragile.
It's like kids though believing in Santa Claus. They've really been conditioned to think that's real.
That's right.
So why can't we as adults be really conditioned to think certain things makes perfect sense?
Yeah, like you said the word pride there, national pride, Ireland. You know what I mean? We just had it in the media there where the Irish girls won, got through to the World Cup and they were
football,
singing the
yeah.
IRA song. And it stores up that at the same time, pride and insecurity and vulnerability, and then British bastards done this, and you know what I mean, getting behind them, and but then the British don't own their part of the history and all that type of
What
stuff.
did they sing? Was it the Wolf Tones?
They sang the Wolf Tones.
Up the.
Ooh, up there, yep.
Did they sing that? I didn't realise that was the song.
It's like loads. There's loads of songs where the kind of repeat chorus is ooh ah.
yeah, and then
So that mean them songs? I heard that song went to number 1 now last week, didn't it?
When someone won everywhere,
Straight to number 1.
so we can, you know.
That mean now they have
and
to take
that's-
all these songs off the internet
well, yeah,
and
this is
completely
what
delete
happens,
them.
Martin. So I want to ask you
And
a
that's
question.
not
then.
travellers. That's civilised. Like I'm going to rephrase that.
I know what
That's
you-
the perceived civilised
Part of
world.
society.
You know what
Can
I mean?
I ask you
Getting
then,
all their knickers in a twist over a bleeding ooh ah up the rat part in the song.
who did them girls play?
They played Scotland.
Right then. So, I'm one of these people that really gets annoyed when everyone keeps being so sensitive. But this is a good way to try. I'm going to try and look at it fairly on the other side then. They played Scotland. Scotland's in Britain. We know what happened between Britain and Ireland. It has nothing to do with today. They sang it in their dressing room, from what I know, and it was a leaked video by mistake. So
there was loads of cameras in there. We're in the bleeding camera.
What were they doing? But what was their reasons for singing that lyric?
Excitement. There was really no
But
reasons.
were they joking about we beat the British?
No,
because that's what that song means.
No, as part of their traditional we won a match celebrations, they sing a load of songs. This happens to be one of them.
It seemed
like a song
harmless.
they
It
sing.
seemed like they didn't even understand
What
the
do you
words.
sang it if they played Portugal?
Probably,
Yeah,
yeah.
100%,
Did
yeah.
they not sound like them sing what you want?
They were
No, they just
celebrating.
sang
They were
a
celebrating that the
moment
Irish
of
girls
excitement,
team.
basically.
Can you understand all the confusion when you look at it? Like they played a British team. Maybe it was England more than Scotland.
Yeah, but look, Scotland is more Irish than it is British.
Yeah,
You know what
a
I
lot
mean?
of people lives there, but well, not a lot of people lives there. A lot of people have Irish ancestors and whatever. But I don't know. I don't know.
So
I don't know what opinion to have on that.
The point I was making was pride and people getting their feelings hurt and people going off to their little groups. We're the Irish and we're the English and I'm going to go and beat that team in football or I'm going to go and kill that man. You know
It's
what I
very
mean?
erratic, isn't it?
I just think it's based in, well, you have pride, but the pride comes from in your head you think, yeah, I'm part of this group and we're better than that other group. But actually, the reason you're tying yourself to that group is because really you're vulnerable, you're insecure.
Completely. You want that sense of identity. It's like when people put those things up. I could eat at a table on my own in a restaurant. I'm not scared of being on my own. Or like people saying, if you could go to the cinema on your own, that's a new type of self-confidence and stuff like that there, that you don't feel like will anyone look at me and think he's a loner? He has no friends, because people will look at you and think that, because the first thing they're not going to think of is, oh, he just wants to watch that film and maybe he wants to get out on his own for the evening. They're going to feel sorry for you or judge you.
But the other thing is, one, they're not thinking that of you. Get over yourself. You're not that important.
Sometimes you're just being paranoid.
Second is they have their own shit to deal with. And third thing is, it's none of your business what other people think about you. So stop analysing it and thinking about it.
I tried to have that approach.
It's none of your business. What are you being so insecure and vain at the same time from? You think everyone else is thinking about you.
You're raised up with thinking that everyone says things about you and whatever, and you do. But we all talk a load of shite sometimes, and it doesn't necessarily mean you think very badly. Sometimes you think badly of yourself, and that's why you judge other people. But I don't know. I think people are being paranoid and vulnerable and all, but like especially with teenagers want to be popular. They really want to be popular. And when you get to my age, you realise you have about 3 friends, and that's all that you actually want. You don't have time for 20 friends. I don't have time to go to 20 friends' house and have a cup of tea. I don't have time for 20 friends to be ringing me when you have relationship issues. I can barely enough keep up with 2 or 3. Do you know what I mean? I have a load of acquaintances, but I have 2 or 3 best friends. And my best friends, not all of them even know each other. And I'm very happy with that as well. So it's that thing though. Everyone wants to be popular and part of a group.
So everyone wants to be part of a group.
Until you realise it's a load of shite.
Everyone wants a little bit of connection. Everyone wants a little bit of love.
No one wants to feel alone.
Everyone wants to be part of a community. But we get it wrong from time to time. We think being part of a community is that our community is better than that other community.
I'm going to fight them.
No matter what it is, race, gender, age,
It's embarrassing.
nationality, it's kind of like psychologically and emotionally, it's kind of immature. But you have to, as an individual, go on a journey where you grow up. And as a community, you have to kind of grow up.
But it does go back to that thing, I think, of like as kids and being a teenager, and that sometimes carries out into adulthood of wanting to be popular, wanting to be loved. It can come from issues you've had as a child where you might not have had needs that was met. I'm not talking about eating or whatever, or food or a home. You might not have had emotional needs.
Emotional needs,
the travelling
connection.
community is big like that, I think. There's a lot of issues with emotions not being expressed properly.
That's what I was telling you about that fella who I listened to him for an hour.
He wanted a hug and all.
I gave him a hug. He listened to me for another few minutes. We had a conversation. Then he said, can I get another hug?
Yeah.
It was fucking
So
beautiful.
you reared quite tough because life was tough, Dean. Travellers, years ago, their lives would have been hard. My nanny used to say, who's passed away now, she died in December, she used to say, there were hard times, but there were better times. And I used to stand there as an 18-year-old and think to myself, Christ, why is she talking so much shite for? How would there be better times? They barely had a plate of food. Because I was
What
not...
she probably meant, Hughie, that there were happier times.
Exactly. What she meant was is that they would go off, they used to work in farms, like picking spuds, and the farmers would give them vegetables and whatever for themselves for doing the work. And they would make dinner and give it out like to other people who was living there. Everyone helped each other. That's what she used to mean by that. And there were tough, hard times that they lived in, like poverty-stricken times years ago. Even my dad's childhood, like if they got a bag of chips, that was like kids today getting a new iPhone. In fact, kids today getting a new iPhone, they expect it. It's not even a big deal to them. They just expect to get these things now. You know, years ago, they probably didn't expect to get a bag of chips. You give whatever you're given and that's it. So they had hard lives growing up. So the emotional needs probably didn't even need to be met, to be honest. Like, we had enough to think about, if you know what I mean. A plate of food you have to think about. So that's the problem is it's now come today where things isn't as poverty stricken for a lot of people. That emotional side of things hasn't picked up where it should have done.
Yeah, so you think all of their needs that they think are being addressed, as in, Balenciagas and phones and all that, is compensating for the emotional stuff that isn't being addressed.
Yeah, and that's life in general.
What he's saying there as well also, it reflects on something else. Back then when they just had the basics in life, basically, they knew that's all they needed in life. So that's what did really keep them happy.
Yeah, survival.
But today's world is there's too much in it, and it's too selfish. So the reality of it is, the brain is scrambled. You don't know what it is now that keeps us happy these days.
You don't know what you're looking for. You don't know what is the thing. There's a hole there. There's a feeling there. You don't know what it is, and you don't know how to fill it. And you think filling it with fighting, or filling it with pride, or filling it with holidays or whatever is going to solve it.
And putting other people down, shaming other people, trying to make themselves feel better. You see that a lot in life.
Yeah, and that's that superiority and inferiority. If you feel inferior, you're going to try and make someone else feel inferior.
Can I ask something? Do you think it'd be good if there was a ban on social media for like 2 days a week? Tuesday and Wednesday, social media sites can't be accessed. You know, like in Turkey and China, you can't access certain social media.
So we do it at kind of a national level.
Completely. In Ireland, you try go on Facebook, the site cannot be used
like
on
Sunday
a
is a day of rest.
I think that would be brilliant.
Why would it be good? I don't know much about social media.
I think it'd be fantastic.
Well, it was like
is to give the brain a rest or something.
Or just get away from it. And it's so hard to get away from it because I don't know when the last time I've rang somebody on a normal phone number is. Nobody does that anymore. It's all through WhatsApp. It's all through Facebook. Even now you can ring in FaceTime through Instagram.
Well, Martin was saying, broke his phone a couple of weeks ago, and he had a little burner of a phone, and he was like, it's the best bleeding thing that happened to me.
Yeah,
that I got for a couple of weeks just to not have a phone, not be on WhatsApp. Like, he doesn't use social media, but he's on WhatsApp 100 times a day.
Yeah, I lose my phone. I'm telling
but
you.
You're right about the phone calls. There's lesser phone calls.
It's
all just a message now through WhatsApp, isn't it?
Do you know, even when you...
Almost everybody's doing it. It's a very, very odd conversation.
Yeah. If you topped up your phone now, does Meteor doesn't exist anymore, Air Mobile and all, even do like those deals for €20 where you get free calls and all now? I think it's just free data, isn't it? You just get data for the month. Because I don't even think anyone... Who uses phone calls now?
Phone calls?
Talk about...
Who texts? Who does normal text anymore?
Normal text.
People send me normal text, and a month later I'll see it and I'll go, don't text me, will you?
I'd go and get
just
any
normal text, not the WhatsApp text.
Not the WhatsApp.
Martin,
WhatsApp is now the number one.
Anyway, me and him had this argument a few times. Someone could send me a message on a WhatsApp, so I mightn't see it for hours later, maybe that evening or the next day for that matter. So I said to him, say, if you want to contact me, said, don't be sending me a message. I said, phone me for 2 seconds and I'll know then you wanted to contact me. Because he offered to me, I sent you a text and he didn't get it.
Yeah, I'm very bad.
I didn't get it because I never went into it. But what I was saying earlier on was about the campfire. The conversation is all gone. It's nearly the same way with the phone now. The conversation's gone from the phone. It's all again the quick message through
The voice notes.
Now you might send 10 messages back and forth, but it's still it's not really a conversation, is it?
Do you think that's also part of the thing we were explaining about how nowadays, even with travellers, when years ago people would solve arguments and people could have a fight or something and that would be it. Do you think now the problem is, as well as that, you don't have to drive 20 miles to the person to say something and you can calm down. Now, they can just go straight onto Facebook or onto WhatsApp and
say
put
what
up
they want
something.
to say.
And that person who they've said it about has been publicly shamed then in the eyes of other travellers. So then they feel the need to go even worse back
that's right.
at the person.
Yeah,
because everyone then can see it. It's there.
You know that thing...
The WhatsApp is good for some ways and it's bad for other ways. Some people might get onto a WhatsApp there and start calling names and reading for each other, as we call it, right? But that's at that moment. But if you didn't have that phone on them,
you wouldn't be able to do it.
And 5 minutes after, there could be a different person that might never want to do it.
Yeah.
You mightn't do it if you're getting paid to do it.
So there's a new level of self-control, and I always say it's writing out the message or the status and then pressing delete instead of send. No, I've got very close to
write it out. That's very good.
I've got very close to the send.
Yeah.
I've now, as I'm getting older, those statuses aren't happening anymore.
So write it out and then just delete it. But you've written it out.
Now, a few years ago, I've started to try learn that.
That's a good one.
Instead of going mental.
There's a thing, delayed gratification, where you don't get the thing immediately. You get it 3 weeks later or a year later, and you appreciate it more. And it's kind of like what you're saying there with the drive from one person's house to another. In that drive, you have a delay in your emotions and you're able to process all the stuff.
Time to calm down, basically.
Time to calm down, yeah. So me and Martin had that a couple of weeks ago. We had a little back and forth about, Martin was saying certain things I needed to edit or delete from the podcast because it was sensitive and we couldn't say the stuff. And I didn't do it in time and I didn't do it right. And we were having back and forths. And he was ringing me like every 5 minutes. So I didn't answer the phone for 2 days. And it was great for both of us just to have that distance, have a little bit of time to think about it. Then I went up to him and I had a chat with him. I sat down and listened to him up in St. Margaret's. And we just gave each other a little bit of time and a little bit of space.
There was something that I was saying, Hughie, again, we were talking about earlier on. If there's something that comes up in a conversation and you sort of listen back to it, you might just realise, look, that needs to be removed.
For you as an individual.
It could be only a second or two at times, you know what I mean? But it's probably the best thing then. Look, if you feel that way about it, just remove it.
Absolutely. Yeah. But the point I'm trying to make is we gave it a few days because the thing now is reply straight away and you're in the emotion. Yeah, but you said this and I said that and da. Just let it go.
Let it go.
But give it a bit of space. Give it a bit of space. He's going to start to...
That's what would be great. This is one of the things that I love living at home and I love being around. This is what people say, don't go into business with family and don't live with family. Because you need that separation, whereas that's all well and good and brilliant. This is where I struggle with this now. I feel like when you can have that break from people, times are always good.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's like you appreciate each other more when they get to see each other again.
Yeah.
So I went up and I had one of the most genuine, honest, lovely conversations with Martin, given a bit of time and space, but then also being able to honestly and openly listen to each other.
Mostly about the chat and a bit of crack and sort of slagging each other and fighting with each other.
It's lovely to
have
that.
He lives for this, I'm telling you now.
But that's good.
He lives for this. He loves it.
And it's great. If somebody said to me 10 years ago that Martin would be doing a podcast, even a year ago, I'd be like, that would be so different to something I'd ever expect him to do.
Yeah.
Do you not agree with that?
Well, I'd agree with you because sometimes I don't know what I'm talking about. So
no, you do know what you're talking about. I think you're actually really smart. But you might have your own way of explaining it. I don't know. But
the complicated way, is it?
He's still from where he's from. He might explain it slightly different, but I completely get him. But I think that's brilliant because it's something very different to what people expect of a middle-aged, like, traveller man. Grew up in a certain time, certain era, with a family, with grandkids, all of this. And you don't understand the doors that opens for people. You know, I know this fella, he's from Orlando in Florida, and his father is from the Middle East. And he's Muslim, he's raised Muslim. And we were filming this show together, and it was the time of Ramadan, which is like, like a way of Lent.
Yeah, they have to fast. That's right.
Yeah, so you only do you only eat when the sun goes down
When
or
the sun
something?
goes down, yeah, that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So-
Once the sun rises, they have to
Yeah.
fast until the sun comes down again.
Yeah, and he discussed this in the show, and the show was very physically demanding. So the fact that he was fasting was obviously going to be difficult on his energy levels and all anyways. And I remember saying to him afterwards, like I said, Fessy, I said, that will be actually brilliant, because if you look at it, if a lot of people thinks of a Muslim man, they're not going to necessarily think of somebody who probably grew up within American culture, is doing reality shows, very open about who they are as an individual, whilst being able to pay homage and respect to the culture and religion they grew up in a positive way, and discuss it on a TV show. That's brilliant. And it could be younger kids who might not have the support to be themselves within a Muslim family in America that you got. Because I think his parents are very worldly and understanding of everything, that you can be your own person. And they might look at somebody like you and find somebody that they relate to, that they're similar to. And this is one of the things with travellers, is that there's not a lot of people out there who there is for kids to look at and think, for good, bad or indifferent, that I'm similar to that person. And a lot of the travellers in the media is very stereotypically traveller anyways. And I think part of that is they act more kind of travellers, inverted comma.
They turn it up.
They turn it up because of other travellers listening and watching.
And because they mightn't have had their voice listened, so they said, well, if I get me 2 seconds on the camera,
Yeah.
I'm going to turn it right up.
I think there's also that thing though as well of like being aware of other travellers watching stuff, and like, there's a big fear I think with travellers of being different.
Thinking about what other travellers think about you.
Yeah,
Kind of, yeah.
thinking about what to think of them.
Yeah, you better not
Well,
stand out.
it is a big problem, though.
It
in the
is a
travelling
big thing. You're
community,
very
isn't it?
much like, oh, well, I might as well do because everyone else is doing it. But they might have wanted to do this thing 5 years ago, but they wouldn't.
Yes.
So that's what's great about this podcast and great about people having these conversations is going back to not feeling alone. But this is kind of a different not feeling alone than being part of a group and, beating up a young fella in your school because he's British and this is in, Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
This is a different kind of not feeling alone, but it probably goes back to the same subconscious feeling maybe.
Or feeling, sometimes we feel that different is bad. Like if I said to you, do you like Muslims? A lot of people would go, oh, I don't. But then if you go, actually, that fella across there that you like, your man that like you were describing, well, he's a Muslim.
He's
Oh,
Muslim,
well, I
yeah.
like him. Well, then, what are you saying? Like, you know what I mean? And I think that, do you like travellers? If I said that to a majority of settled people, they'd go, oh, I don't like travellers. But then you go, Martin, who does that podcast with me, the really nice fella who sings and has a bit of crack, he's a traveller. Hughie, who does reality TV, he's a traveller. These is what travellers are. They're not this other foreign weird thing that we can't understand. They're human.
Different
they're
frightens
just
people.
Different frightens people,
Say
yeah.
they're just human, yeah.
You're just human.
Different scares people.
Absolutely. I think there's something going on in the back of my head, and it's related to what you were saying about having time off our screens, off our phones. And I think it would be an amazing idea if in Ireland, for one day a week, let's say a Sunday, we turned off the phones. We turned off the social
It would
media.
be great, wouldn't it? But you see, the
I could
working
turn
world
mine
is
off
built
all
on
week
that.
because I get no calls anyway.
No, but I'm talking about having giving yourself a break on a Sunday. Like, let's call it Sunday service. You turn the phone off.
But see, Dean, you can do that as an individual, but it's hard to do that as an individual when other people aren't. Not because I've got FOMO, fear of missing out on what somebody might post on Instagram. To tell you the truth, I'm gone too far long in the tooth to be concerned about somebody, whether they're traveller or non-traveller, someone I follow, famous or not, having a rant about somebody on Facebook. That's not what I'm talking about. It's more to do with, like, I get emails about volunteering for stuff. Well, emailing is kind of different, but, even the traditional email has gone, like the traditional phone call. People message me on Instagram and on Facebook about work opportunities, TV opportunities, volunteering for stuff. A girl just messaged me actually on Instagram, asked me would I take part in like a hike thing they're doing for charity, all of this kind of stuff. So if I just say, oh, I'm having a week off my phone.
I'm not saying a week.
No, but just for example, that's the part. If I knew the whole of Ireland cannot go on their phone to go on Instagram on a Wednesday and on a Thursday every week, I can then know, rest assured, I'm not missing anything that somebody might need off of me.
Yeah.
Or vice that might help me.
I'm going to throw it out there. One, I'm going to go back to what we were saying about the insecurity. You're not that important, right?
Yeah, but there might be things that I might miss out on.
There might be bollocks. Sunday, the whole country is going to stop using their phone for 1 day a week. Sunday, that's what it's going to be. And none of us are that important. Ireland, none of you are that important. You're not going to be missing out.
Do you actually think that this is going just because you said that's going to happen? So do you think that you're that important?
Jamie, what is saying?
That you're going to shut down?
I know, exactly.
That you're actually going to shut down Ireland. You're not that important, Dean.
But if we don't throw it out there, if we don't suggest it, it won't become a thing.
Can I make another suggestion about Ireland? So if I was the Taoiseach, I nearly said Prime Minister. I was in England for too long, Dean. But Prime Minister, for if anyone who's not Irish listening to this, our leaders of the country, if I was that, God help everyone. But one thing I would
the
make...
The first traveller Taoiseach.
You know what I think it would be a great thing made mandatory, and please hear me out, is I think all of our schools should be fully Gaelic speaking, so that all of us can speak Gaelic fluently. I think it's ridiculous that we can't speak Irish. You know how embarrassed I get when non-Irish people ask me when they first of all find out there even is a Gaelic language. And I went to school. I done like Irish oral for my leaving cert. I got a B in Irish on my leaving cert. So I was good at Irish, but it's very basic. You're taught how a 3-year-old would talk. Like, what's my name? How old are you? This is my name. This is the song I like. Do you know what I mean? It's very, very basic. I actually think we should all be able to speak Irish, and I would have that social media ban thing twice a week. And I would have, you start primary school at age 7 rather than age 4 or 5, because I don't think they're old enough. But they're my 3 rules.
If Hughie ruled the world, this is the way it'd be.
My luck, if they turned off phones for a certain day of the week, that would be the day I get one phone call.
Yeah, that's what I meant earlier.
I know. I was only slagging you.
Message me.
But if we all done it on a Sunday, I'm gonna go for this. I'm gonna try and push this out, right? I'm gonna suggest that we do a national campaign.
Blackout Sunday,
or whatever the Sunday service. Like Kanye West joke, Sunday service. We turn the phones off. We turn the social media off for Sunday. And if we are going to teach, because we're all very in schools where we all get taught Irish, but we're taught in a way that it just doesn't go in. So we're not using it all the time.
No,
we're not using
Dublin Gaelic.
We're not using the language communally.
Dean, just a question I want to ask you. Why would you want people to turn phones off on a Sunday? No, it's just a question.
To go to Mass.
To go to Mass, Martin, is it?
But do you go to Mass?
I would be chilling out in my hammock, or hanging out with my girlfriend. That's what I would be doing.
Without getting the whole country turned upside down, with knocking off their phones, can you just not take your own phone, switch it off, and put it on the shelf?
Yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it personally, but
I don't want to do it on a Sunday though. I'd rather do it midweek.
You want midweek? Why?
Well, I think
pick any day you want, boys. Okay,
Sunday, people are hungover.
You're free to knock your phone off anything you want.
I can be hungover any day of the week.
Or you can flick through your phone.
Yeah, but people go on a Sunday so they can see the carnage of the Saturday night before. This is They want to see everyone's cringy stories.
Everyone's
from when
walk
they were
of
shame. As I said, that can be me any day.
Light entertainment on your phone.
But Sunday has a vibe, because we're reared up with Sunday being like, you go to Mass, you have Sunday dinner. Sunday has a feeling of, that shouldn't be there. It's an imaginary vibe that this is a chill out day. So I think that's the day when people would want to be on their phones or whatever. But I think midweek would be brilliant, just like of a Wednesday. Just on a ban, make a ban. They won't because of money reasons, but just Facebook and Instagram is down every Wednesday. I think that'd be brilliant. I swear to God, I'd love that. And I don't want to look at the people, but then I go on and look at them on the Wednesday. But it's like, I'd love if that went.
You're a walking blatant contradiction.
I am.
So are you with Hughie on that, Dean? Yeah. Because I'm staying out of this.
Why, are you going to keep yours on?
No, because it's all the same to me. I can leave it on and leave it off. I get no phone calls anyway, so
You're not as
I just get that odd
you're not as dependent or addicted to it.
I just get that odd WhatsApp.
No, I'm a music listener, but I can just do Spotify. I don't, and you can have WhatsApp, have your emails, Instagram and Facebook down, and TikTok down. I'm not a TikToker. I'm not very tech savvy. I don't use TikTok. I've only got Twitter back.
I found TikTok very useful. I only set it up last week for a Traveller and a Countryman podcast.
I need to set it up.
And it's flying along. There's people looking at it. Now, it's the stuff on it is like mind-numbingly brutal. It's like candy floss for the brain.
It's very addictive, isn't it?
Very addictive, but that's why. It's like literally like candy floss.
No, I haven't genuinely I haven't a clue how to use
TikTok.
Facebook, TikTok, any of them websites. The only thing I can use genuinely is WhatsApp, yeah?
He doesn't even use his own email. His email is on my phone.
I don't know how to use I don't know how to use
the way you
email.
learn how to use WhatsApp is the same thing with all the social medias. They are very basic. They seem complicated, but they're basic. TikTok is just like how you have Facebook and just statuses and videos. Now they've really updated Facebook. They've the Facebook Watch and everything to kind of mimic other social medias. TikTok is like a video version of Facebook. It's always a video every post. But the videos are edited with songs and meanings and funny stuff, and it can be positive stuff, it can be controversial stuff. There's everything on there.
I can only imagine how much of a headache it is for us. I get a headache from the WhatsApp. Seriously.
So I don't have a lot of contacts.
As I said, now I just look at it. If a WhatsApp comes, I'll check it later on.
I go on my sister's WhatsApp, and she has every traveller in the country on it. And I'm like, how do you have like so many stories? I feel like I'm on Instagram. I'm like, this person, that person, and like on my WhatsApp, I have about 4 people. So WhatsApp's not that interesting for me because I'm not in group chats and stuff.
Yeah, okay. So your sister loads of group chats.
No, like my dad would be and there'd be group chats with other travellers and stuff like that there. So there'd be stuff in it of loads of people who I know who they are.
Yeah, I think majority of travellers would be using WhatsApp instead of them other.
100%. Huge. They send everything around on WhatsApp and everything under stories. I'm like, who puts stuff under story on WhatsApp? Who actually watches that? What travellers do?
The travellers of Ireland, all the travellers in the world, what I want you to do is, this is episode 21 with Hughie Maughan. It was a pleasure, a privilege having you on.
Thanks for having me, Dean.
It was lovely. It was nice and buzzy, warm. We went in and chatted about stuff that sometimes can be a bit difficult to talk about, but we chatted about it.
We done it. It was fun.
I think Martin was a little bit nervous and apprehensive, and it took him about 3 weeks to knock into you and ask you to come on. But that's all right.
I wouldn't say nervous. Think about it is, I see Hughie almost every day, so to have chats with him and his family. Like, you know, I live next door to them, so I thought maybe I'd give Dean the opportunity of asking Hughie to come on here to the podcast and let him ask all the questions. I think it was fair.
It's like if your friend was a sidekick, if you're like, why would I ask you for a reading? Because what would you kind of think in your head? Well, are you just telling me stuff because you know me? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is it a bit like that?
Yeah.
Do you believe in psychics? Can I ask this? Do you think
Psychics?
psychic
No, I don't.
But see,
I don't know if they're true or not true. I just don't believe. I don't.
You wouldn't be interested in.
I wouldn't be interested in going to them. No.
My friend's mother, who's a psychic, told me so much stuff about Big Brother. When I was 16, she told my sister that I'd go on a British show, then I'd do an Irish show, and then I'd do an American show. And I used to always say, what load of shite is Teresa talking, especially about the American show. And then I done one last year.
And it did happen.
Did happen. She told my sister how she'd meet her husband. She said what order children would be born and what gender they would be, and it's the truth. It's all happened like that.
I don't know. Some people have great belief. I know in them psychics.
Yeah, I don't.
I wouldn't personally. I wouldn't go to them because
my father thinks it's bad looking.
Do you know what Martin thinks about ghosts?
What do you think about ghosts?
I think I don't believe in ghosts, but I know they're out there.
No, that's just because you're
strange,
scared.
isn't it? Huh?
That means you're scared.
Believe it or not, I don't.
No, he said, I don't believe in ghosts, but I know they exist.
No, I don't believe. Yeah, Dean, I don't believe a word that comes off your mouth, but I know you exist. So it's the same thing, isn't it?
No, that's very different.
No, he's trying to make a joke of it.
No.
He doesn't believe in ghosts, but he knows they exist.
But it's almost his way of talking, because my father would turn around and say to people, like nurses in the site, like, oh, do you even believe in the coronavirus? And I'm like, hello, you had it. So obviously it happens. But that's not what he means.
It's a way of saying it.
Yeah, what he means is, do you think it's completely as deadly? Is it as true? Is everything, is the vaccine positive? But he doesn't have the vocabulary to say it like that. So he says it that way.
Yeah.
That's how my father
So
talks.
I'm open to it all. I'm open to ghosts, UFOs,
Aliens.
psychics, aliens,
Avatars.
anything. I'm open to it all. I think that's wonderful. I think
Well, it's like saying, I know that.
he completely cracks himself
How
up.
would I say it? The ghost? What was the one I said? The ghost? I know.
You know they exist.
I don't believe in
You
them.
don't believe in them, but you know they exist.
Yeah, I know they exist, but I don't follow in them.
I don't know. I definitely believe in a spirit world. I believe in an energy world, a spiritual world. I do believe there's such thing as karma. I do believe that you manifest and you get things that you want, and things genuinely come to you. And I think things happen for a reason. I think you're taught things as lessons. I don't know, like, if there's such thing as what happens in our afterlife is as the picture that we're told it is, but I do think I can believe that we do go somewhere, and there's every chance as to where we're told it is, as it is, it isn't. But I don't think it really matters.
In Martin's head, there's a load of beds there.
Beds.
Yeah.
No, you see, Dean likes to be sarcastic.
I'm not being
again, you see.
sarcastic. This is what you said.
Yeah, but sometimes certain things need explaining. You can't just say there's a lot of beds there.
Martin
colour
believes,
are the
Martin
beds,
believes
Dave?
in heaven it's kind of
Is
like
there
it's like white and clouds and flat and there's loads of beds.
See, when we use the word, say, someone say passed away in the past, and say God may give them a happy bed in heaven.
Yeah, what?
It's a word we use. So then you have that word where you say, may they rest and sleep in peace. Them kind of words, yeah. So Dean was dragging out of me for something to. So the best way I can explain to Dean my vision of heaven is this lovely, nice place, like living on a cloud. Yeah.
Never any bad things.
Yes, and everything is good.
And there's loads of beds.
So hopefully there's loads of beds. That if you want to get a sleep, if you do want to sleep, you have somewhere to sleep. I told him, so you don't feel.
I
you
wonder
wouldn't
what
feel
it
like.
is like.
I said you wouldn't feel like sleeping on the ground, or sleeping on a wall, or sleeping on a desk or something, would you?
So I was saying, if there's beds, is there other stuff like shopping centres and bikes?
No, well, obviously not. I think that's more earth
No,
stuff.
I think that's
On beds are not earth stuff.
No, but Martin means beds as a euphemism.
A euphemism.
Well, I've never heard the word when a person dies.
Oh, does it?
God may give him a good shopping centre. And God may give him a good bike to cycle.
I hope there's River Island. He loved that shop.
God may give him. Yes, now you have it. So there you go.
But it makes me feel sad. I don't
phrase,
want to die.
The phrase is used.
Do you know?
No, I'm not scared of that. I'm not scared of God and all. Because I don't think I'm bad. I don't think I want to get judged. I think I'm nice. That sounds narcissistic, but I think I don't mean it narcissistically.
So Dean, are you scared to die? No.
I used to be very afraid of dying. So
So
years ago, I used to go into me mammy and I'd be screaming because I'd be thinking, when you're dead for a
God.
week, a month, a year, 100 million years.
Eternity.
And that would freak me out. And I'd go in
where
and
do you think you're going,
I'd want to
Dean?
hang out with me mammy and I'd go, Mammy, and I'd scream the house down going, I don't want to die. But recently I've resolved that and I actually I'm not afraid of dying now. And not being afraid of dying has helped me really embrace living.
Yeah, I remember when I'm like 90, hopefully I'll be 90, that I think I've lived a life, good and bad, that has been fulfilled as the right thing. That's more scary. Imagine being that age and looking back and thinking, you know what, I wish I'd done all those things that I wanted to do, or I went to them places, or I done the things that I didn't do the things that I didn't want to do. That's more scary than dying, in my opinion.
Is it? Well, mine is like, what mine does is, because I'm not afraid of dying, I don't even think much of the future anymore or the past. I'm here right now in this going,
And we do it bit by bit.
I'm just happy with this. Whatever it is right now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to think about when I'm 90, all the shit I didn't do. I'm just going to be
How do
here
you know you won't?
now.
How do you know you won't?
Because this
Has
is
gotten a good
how, because I'm going to
mindset.
be here right now,
Yeah.
living this.
He's being present.
I'm being
So are
in
you going
this
to
moment.
conquer absolutely everything in this life?
What do you mean conquer everything?
Conquer everything, absolutely everything.
I don't know what that means. Do everything.
What I mean is,
climb
yeah,
all the mountains.
If you when you hit 90, like Hughie said, when he reaches 90, yeah, and you look back and say, yeah, I done this, I done that, I done the other, but there's one thing that I would have liked to do. doesn't that mean you're still going to be saying when you're 90?
Yeah, so I don't think I'll be in that position because I'm right here, right now, doing this.
Yeah, so Martin, this is what I think what you mean. Is this is the thing I've had to learn. Like we were talking about the seasons before we came in. This is what I've had to learn is you also can accept there's reasons why you didn't do stuff and you've learned through things.
Yes, that's right.
And it's like somebody asking, do you regret anything? I always say there's things I most certainly can regret, but I don't regret because I can't change it. And I would regretting because I'm wasting more time and I'm forever in a mental torture of worrying and not getting past the past and whatever. So you learn that as you get older when you open that as well. So when you get to like 90 years old, you'll probably think, no, there's reasons why I didn't do this. There's reasons why I didn't do that. That just didn't happen. But you know what? I'm appreciative of the fact I went there. I know I didn't go there, but I went there. It's learning not to be so harsh
appreciate
on
the things
yourself.
that you did do, not the things you didn't do.
Yeah, learn you have your path and not be harsh on yourself. And be good in every day, because this is what we were talking about was the weather. I hate wintertime. It goes through me. I get like
I love the
seasonal,
winter.
I'm starting to love it now.
seasonal depression. Like I honestly do. I hate
I had
darkness.
the same thing. I'm
Goes
starting to
through
love it
me.
now. Since I started to not be afraid of dying, I've started to appreciate
I
every
think,
moment.
I think when you're, I'm not saying you're not Hughie, I think when you're grateful for something is when you appreciate it more.
Yeah.
Like every morning I wake up, I say, just bless my face, do me a few prayers, and I say, thank God for another day for my family. So I don't care if it's teeming rain, don't care if the wind is blowing, don't care if the snow, the ground is
Yeah.
covered in snow, don't care what kind of weather, don't if it's
Just don't be complaining.
if the
yeah.
sun is shining, absolutely is a
Have
bonus.
gratitude for it.
But I always say, no matter what the day is, I say thank God for another day. And I
Definitely.
think, I could be wrong now, but I think that's what makes me comfortable in the day itself. Like when the wind is blowing, the trees are blowing in, a nice bit of dark evening, and a nice mist of rain. I just love that. I could stand there for, and I don't do it, but I could stand there for hours.
But see,
I love it.
that's because, as I said to you earlier on when you were saying about that, and I said in nature. That's why I said earlier,
Yeah.
I think there's definitely an energy in the world, and there's the people who are very militant vegans and very into all the manifestations and ayahuasca retreats and all of this. Why I think that's true, and they're not just being manipulated and being brainwashed to believe, walking in real dirt in the ground gives you a certain energy from nature. I think it does, because like being in the rain, people sometimes go swimming down at the beach when it's raining.
Before we
Like,
were
They
here,
say that gives them something.
before we were here, I was in the sea.
They say that genuinely
That
gives you
connects me.
something.
There you
That connects
go.
me back to.
Another thing I like as well when we're when we're asleep in the caravan, yeah, and say the winter's nights
And the wind and rain.
and the rain is beating the roof, and it's that lovely, lovely, lovely feeling. It's like a therapy in its own way.
It's like meditation. The
Yeah,
meditation. sounds
yeah.
Yeah,
on
John Connor said that to
YouTube.
me. He said
It's
that that's
just
the thing that he loves
beautiful.
about being in the camp.
It's something that you cannot buy.
It's
absolutely.
the tin roof, the rain hitting off the tin roof.
Yeah,
He said
but
the same
everyone,
thing. Yeah,
everyone
I
likes
think everybody.
that.
Yeah, I think everybody has the same feeling or the same sort of attitude towards it. It's just that lovely, relaxing feeling.
Yeah.
I don't know why or what causes it.
It's nature.
Could
It's
it
a
be?
nice
Or could it be a
nice.
fact that a fact that you're inside, you're warm and you're dry, and the rain is out there beating.
And you feel protected and all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A certain sense of
I'm-
security in the wildness.
Yet, but it's a
Yeah.
lovely, lovely feeling in
That is
the
good.
caravan. With the
That's
roof.
why there's them
Yeah.
apps, the calm apps and all, that have the rain sounds, the lake sounds, the wind sounds, and people puts that on as they're falling asleep, like as false.
Yeah.
But this is real.
Yeah. You
I
don't
listen to rain sounds
You
all
don't
the
have
time.
to listen. You don't have to get the app because you have it there.
Yeah, in the wintertime we do.
Yeah. It's
So
lovely.
now we have one good thing in the traveller's lifestyle.
Old people love that. My sister's little girl is like 2.5 months, and she plays rain sounds on the phone for her, and it's something that makes her quiet. And
You
she's-
get that? I get
she's
my,
crazy
my,
like all of
my
us.
girlfriend gets that when she hears the wind and the rain. She's like, "Ooh, I love this." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Just that kind of wintry, wild
Yeah.
feeling.
And
you know what I mean?
you get to watch all the shows. The winter time brings out all the shows.
Something
You get to lie on the sofa on a Sunday
Yeah,
hung
I was
over.
Watch
going to
out,
say
I've
that. I
slept to
think
get
there's
me out of
something.
here.
I think there's something cozy about it. It has to be.
Yeah, but Martin, I like the vitamin D from the sun. It makes me happy. But I do. I can understand, and I'm learning to appreciate it, because there's nothing I can do. Like I'm not from I don't know, Argentina when it's warm in certain months. It's just I'm Irish.
You're not in
and that's
control
it.
of it.
There's nothing I can do.
One
Sit
of the
down and
things that
watch.
you learn as you get a little bit older is I'm not in control of most things, and that's okay.
Just sit down, order pizza, watch Strictly Come Dancing, and enjoy the rain.
Think about what you're
Put
going to be
up with
like as a 90-year-old man on your own, having done or not done all the stuff.
That's why I want to have loads of tattoos, and I hate people that says that tattoos will look ugly when you're older. Your body is already going to be changed when you're 90.
Have you got any tattoos?
I'm not being funny. I have about 8 or 9, and I don't like most of them, but I don't regret it because, as I said, that was then, and why regret it? They're already on my body.
I don't have any, but I was talking to my girlfriend recently about getting like a small tattoo of a harp on my hand there.
Why a harp?
I don't know, probably a bit of Irish stuff.
Get it on your forehead,
all that
Ian,
type
your
of stuff.
forehead. Put it on your forehead.
What would I get on my forehead?
The harp.
yeah.
I know people who have face tattoos, and I know there's discrimination against them because there is in jobs and all, but that's what they like, and they live quirky lives. Their jobs is quirky.
Yeah, and sometimes, as we said earlier on, we think different is bad, but you know.
Yeah, there was a big stereotype of tattoos for years that are dangerous, and then it became really fashionable because of David Beckham and all. Then everyone got like celebrity tattoos that look really cringe now, but no, I think it's great.
So you were talking about dying, and you asked me earlier on about am I religious? So where are you on that? Where are you on the religious stuff? Because I know when Martin's on here, he loves talking about religion.
Yeah,
he
I do.
bleeding loves it.
I do pray every night, and I got holy water earlier. My father got me some enoch, and I instinctively put it all around where I live. And I do have this cord on my hand that my cousin put on it one night when we were drinking about 4 years ago, and it's still there. And every time I've ever gone away to do shows or anything, I always brought my things with me that my mother gave me years ago when I was going on Big Brother. I still have them to this day. I still have my 4-leaf clover that my friend, who's actually a psychic, gave me.
So you're superstitious.
And I still have a rock that actually Martin's daughter's mother-in-law gave me years ago when I was about 12 that she got on some holy mountain. And those things I always bring together whenever I go away places. So I am obviously religious, but I'm also open to the fact that whatever religion you're reared up in is the one you're reared up in, and that there's only one God. And if you want to call it Allah, call it Jesus. I don't know what the biblical story is. I don't know if Moses existed, if Jesus existed in the form we hear.
Yeah.
I don't know if Adam and Eve did. And all of these things I can understand the human brain can see it as so far-fetched. But there's a lot of things in life that is far-fetched anyways. That's crazy and wonderful. But because we see them every day, they become very normal to us. Like babies being born, and even stuff like in nature, like the tide going in and out. I have a weird brain. I think all of those things is wonderful in life. So
I don't think you have a weird brain. I think you're open and curious.
yeah, so why is it so weird to think there is a heaven, for example? Why is that so crazy to think about? Because crazy stuff happens in the world. If you go to Australia, it's the same sun that we're looking at. Isn't that nuts to think
A
about?
bleeding oak tree grows out of a little seed.
Yeah, and that crazy, and how like the trees work together under the ground.
We're on a
and
rock hurtling through eternal space.
fire.
It's great. It's great.
It is nuts to think about.
Brilliant.
I can't think about it too much because I get a headache. But I'll be at home and I'll be like this in the corner with the anxiety through the roof. When's the ball gonna fall? But
What's the ball?
Yeah, but don't you think about it? I'm one to talk. I need a therapist, but when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, why is anyone ever worried about anything? Like life is crazy. These
Human
things happen
nature,
that are
Hughie,
so
human nature.
uncontrollable.
Yeah, fear and
Why are you
vulnerability and
bothered?
all that. Because we're alive, we have fear and vulnerability. We don't want to die.
And worry and
And then once I resolved my fear of death, I started to appreciate all of the craziness in life. And it's all beautiful. And I'm not running from anything, or I'm not running towards that anymore. I'm just where I am, right here, chilled
Yeah.
out. Chilled
Enjoying
out,
life.
and enjoying every moment of
Do you remember Steve Jobs, as one of his last quotes was, he lies... It is Steve Jobs, isn't it?
From Apple.
He was a really rich man. Did he die of cancer?
I think he
and
had prostate cancer.
all
yeah.
sorts. He got really sick. So he sat there and he said he is the society's idea of the epitome of success and how you live your life. Like, he's the complete poster person for this is a successful life. And he said,
wealth and money and all
all of
that.
my money and all of my success in engineering cannot save me from the impending guarantee of death. Like, he couldn't be saved. He was that sick. So, like, in other words, like, don't just chase money. Don't just chase fame and being the best at anything. Like, obviously be ambitious, but live. He didn't really live in his life. You can read all of that. And do a lot of other things that he enjoyed. And no matter how much money he had, it wouldn't
And
change
take
anything.
risks. And the stuff I said to Martin, take risks, be honest, be courageous, be vulnerable, open your heart.
Yeah, he's the epitome of success because of what he achieved. But there's people out there that you'll never have heard of and maybe didn't have big careers but were the most amazing parents and probably done so much and reared great people that have helped society and helped the world. But people don't look at that as the same version of success, do they?
Yes.
Yeah, well, we learned during COVID that the heroes are the bleeding bin men and the
Because
nurses.
two people could start a whole generation. If you see two grandparents, if they're still alive and they have their 70th wedding anniversary, that room can have 300 people that came from them.
That's right.
It's like when Ellie was on. Like,
Yeah.
she said, I've got like 200
Oh
grandkids.
God, how many actually does? How many brothers and sisters have you got?
Say 12 altogether.
So there's 12 altogether. And how many grandchildren do you know was there?
I don't know. She said something like
Like 250 or something like that.
Oh,
And then
that's
great
right.
grandchildren. Just she said like 150 or something
a load
like
of grandkids.
She
Even-
now has
even-
a great
great grandchild.
Yeah, she does because her granddaughter is now a grandmother in the site.
Yeah, that's right.
So that woman
Yeah.
herself
Wow.
has birthed a quarter of the travellers in the whole world.
In Ballymun. Yeah.
Ellie's responsible for a quarter of the whole traveller population.
Population.
Martin has is your wife got 20 odd siblings, is it?
Yeah,
Now look how many people is in that family.
21 the family, yeah.
How can you have 21 brothers and sisters? Well, do you know all their names? Do you remember
Yeah,
them?
you'd have to write them down, wouldn't
Because
you?
because he had no radiators in the
How does
caravans.
the mother and
They had to
father
keep
walk
warm.
out?
They had to keep warm somehow.
Imagine when you had to call them all years ago. None of the mums and dads would come to the door and call them. And
Willie,
you have
Winnie,
to-
Johnny, Martin. That's what he called. That's what he
and they're
called them all.
and they're all called the same
They're all
names.
called
yeah.
Martin.
There would have been a lot of other Martins on the side, a lot of other Michaels.
So, Dean, do you know anyone from the tenements that had real big families?
So there's a documentary on RTE called The Tenements, and there was a family from Ballymun from the Tenements. The one that's actually a museum there now in Henrietta Street.
Yeah.
So I know that
Family
family.
from Ballymun now.
Yeah, their siblings, their kids live in Ballymun now. But
What's the
they lived.
Tenements?
The Tenements was like, you know, the old big Georgian buildings in town.
Yeah.
So they used to be owned by British landlords when this country was run by.
And there'd be 10 families living in the one
There was
house.
one family at the start, and then Dublin City Council took them over, and some of them and other landlords as well, and they put 10 families then in one house.
So they'd have a bedroom each.
They'd have one room each, yeah, basically. And then when those tenements started to fall down, some of them are still there, and like, you know, if you go into some of the squares like Miriam Square and all them, you know those big buildings, they're like basically what the tenements were. Some of them started to fall down because they weren't being maintained in the 40s, 50s and 60s.
Wow.
And they built Ballymun and places
Yeah,
like Ballymun.
didn't they build the flats and all and moved a lot of people out and stuff,
Yeah,
like, didn't
yeah.
they? And then I know people left afterwards. So that's why a lot of Dublin has a lot of family that were actually from Ballymun or lived in Ballymun at a certain period of time, or their mum was born in the flats and they moved, I don't know, to Portmarnock and whatever afterwards.
Yeah, and then you'll also find a lot of people originally from Ballymun, their family were from the inner city, the north inner city.
So most of Dublin's population must have just been in town and it's kind of gone out as the years have gone on.
Yeah, well, for Dublin, the whole of Dublin was between the canals.
Yeah, because there wouldn't have been Blanchestown back then. Now, what would Blanchestown have been? Fields. It probably
So
didn't
that,
exist.
did you ever hear that phrase, between the canals?
No.
So there's a film called Between
Yeah,
the
the film,
Canals,
yeah.
and
Peter
Dublin City
Coonan.
Council, when they were counting the homeless people, used to count only the people that were sleeping on the streets between the canals.
Yes.
Yeah, the Royal Canal and the Grand Canal. That was basically Dublin, and then it's grown out since then.
Wow. Very educational, Dean.
That was a great film. Did you see it, Hugh? You know?
No, I've never seen it.
Your man, that Peter Coonan, he used to be in, what do you call it?
Peter Coonan was in Love hate.
He's a good actor.
I actually
though, he
seen
is.
him in a
But
in a
he's
play.
all roughed up in this film now.
I seen him in a
great.
play the
Good
other
crack
day
in it.
in the Abbey. It was a play about a traveller family that moved to London. They were involved in loads of fights and violence and all that. And the daddy came over from Ireland to visit them, and he was a head case. He was a drinker, and he had them all fighting against each other. It's a very good play. It's on in the Abbey. It's
I
on the
need to see
Peacock
it.
stage. It's lovely.
And they went and based on Travellers.
Do you know what's that film, Martin, that they filmed with travellers and around the flats years ago? Was that Into the West?
Into the West,
That
yeah.
has travellers in
That's
it.
right.
That was probably
Did you
one
ever
of
see
the,
that, Dean?
might
No.
be one of the
The
first
whole country
films
scene, it's hate though and all that type of
Wow,
stuff.
I'm
It's
just
like
asking, did you
it's
see
like
this?
the bleeding.
with the horse.
It's like the traveller's favourite film, Into the West.
Yeah, but I don't know.
No,
if
it
it's
wasn't
my
the Travellers' favourite film. It was the only film that they ever had to watch.
Yeah, everyone had a DVD of it. It's like, I don't know. It's like Barney as a baby. Everyone had a videotape.
It was
of
the only
Barney.
film out there, so you had no choice to watch it.
So what I was going to say earlier on was, travellers out there in WhatsApp groups, I'm going to share this podcast. I want you to share it around to all the travellers in all the WhatsApp groups, because basically this is Talking Bollox for travellers. Let's share it. Let's have the conversations. And just let's talk about the stuff that makes us laugh, makes us cry, makes us angry, makes us afraid. And maybe somewhere along the way, we will all start to just feel a little bit more human and listen to.
Yeah, thank you. Great.
Thank you, Hughie.
Anyway,
No
Hugh, thank
worries.
you very much, my friend.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So that's us for this episode, a Traveller and a Countryman podcast. If you like it, let us know, share it around, and sure we'll see you on the road.